Hey, welcome to the Gory Details Horror Show. We are your hosts. I want to welcome Eric.
And I want to go ahead and welcome the one, the only, Casey.
That's me. So, really quick warning before we get into anything. There obviously are going to be spoilers. We're going to be discussing the movie It Follows. If you haven't seen that movie and you don't want us to completely fucking ruin it for you,
Cover your ears.
Cover your ears. If you do want us to ruin it for you, or if you have seen the movie, this podcast is for you. Otherwise, maybe you want to skip to the second part of the podcast, which we would prefer you didn't, because, you know.
You're going to miss all the gory details.
Ha! He said it. He said the name of the podcast. Okay, other warnings include listening to this podcast could cause you to be possessed by demon spirits. I would have an exorcist ready.
I mean, what is it, Case? Nowadays, does speed dial still exist?
I think you can program it into your cell phone.
Right?
I think you can just have the priest set like exorcism for a podcast. Just save it. You don't even you don't need his name because you're not going to be able to fucking
exactly.
speak.
What would that be for short? Just X.
Yeah, just
have him ready.
Exorcism. Anyway, the point is you're going to need a fucking demon out of you.
Yes.
You're probably not going to be thinking too much about anything.
No.
If you can even call, I mean, you might just call your mom and start.
You could call
really
mom.
Fucked up stuff.
You know, hey mom. You know,
you're possessed by a demon.
Yeah. So someone help me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Your
mother's in here with us.
I am your mom.
Well, your mother's okay.
Mama.
Okay. So also listening to this podcast. I'm not going to say that you're being put on some sort of a list. But if the government starts watching you, if you notice police in your neighborhood more than usual,
that's Big Brother for you. So.
Yeah, if you're getting knocks on your door in the middle of the night, you open them and no one's there. If you open your curtains and someone's just looking in the window, just watching everything you do.
Basically, watch your back, okay?
Yeah, so I'm not going to say this podcast will kill you.
But it could induce vomiting and, all the above, so.
Nausea, diarrhea. Or you might just fucking hate it and it'll ruin your day.
Exactly. You will lose no sleep and just, live your life as usual.
Keep in mind, this is the first episode ever of our podcast.
Yes, in the history of the gore... gosh, I gotta get that. The Gory Details Horror Show. That's a bit of a mouthful, but I'll tell you what, it comes off the tongue rather nicely.
It helps if you know the name of the fucking podcast.
Yes. So you know what? I think I'm gonna be working on a tattoo this weekend, which will be the title, and hopefully by then I can go ahead and memorize it. So
okay, before we get into the fun stuff, some really quick business.
Yep.
You can like us on the Facebook.
Yes.
The Gory Details Horror Show, where you will get updates about the show, updates about horror-related news, random short stories, thing about, I don't know, all kinds of weird shit.
I mean, we're talking thoughts, we're talking reviews, we're talking just anything and everything under the sun. But, of course, in relation to horror, so...
Yeah. So that's, and Twitter, Gory Details HS for horror show at Gory Details HS if you want to follow us on the Twitter page, which of course you do.
Of course you do.
And as far as sponsorships, we are currently sponsored by no one.
Yes, and again, that's no one with a capital N, so... If you like what you hear and you want to hear more of us and, well, you feel inclined to, sponsor us, please feel free. You can actually reach us here at gorydetails@gmail.com.
Yep, and if you have any questions about the show, if you want to send us hate mail, if you think...
Tell us to drop dead. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, if you want to send us any kind of death threats, that's probably the place to do it. But once again, we're sponsored by No One, the delicious beverage that's sort of mountain tasting in a very dew-like way. No one. It's refreshing. It's got 0 calories, and no one's going to notice it's there.
That's the best part.
Okay. So today on the podcast, we are going to be discussing, once again, It Follows.
Yes.
If you haven't seen this movie,
What
where the
first
fuck
off,
have you been?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Why are you listening to a horror podcast
Right.
if you haven't watched this fucking movie?
In fact, turn the podcast off right now and watch the film.
I don't know if you should be telling people to turn off the podcast.
Actually, you know what? I mean, it is our first podcast, so maybe I shouldn't.
No,
right?
no.
Okay. On second
Probably a bad
thoughts, wait until the podcast is complete, and of course, treat yourself to a screening of the film.
There you go. We're also going to be talking about Wes Craven. We're going to have a short tribute to Wes Craven, who has recently passed. Which, of course, everyone in the horror world
Tremendous loss.
torn up about,
Indeed.
understandably.
Yeah.
We're going to be discussing Hannibal, the TV show. It has come to a close. And then we're also... Unfortunately so. And we're going to be talking about American Horror Story, the upcoming season.
Yes.
Just some quick thoughts about the series in general. Maybe its direction, where it's going. We have absolutely no idea because we have no insiders in the business at all. So it's all completely speculation. Don't quote us on it. Don't go to the media with it.
Yeah.
And
if you do, we'll find you.
We will.
We will kill you.
Yes.
I mean, that's true.
Well, I mean, I'm not very good at that. Eric?
Well, I mean, I guess I should just stop it right there.
I don't think I have enough money to hire somebody.
Oh, mention anything about hiring anybody? I mean, I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy.
Right.
Anyway.
I mean, I think it would be cheaper than plane tickets.
You know what? I think you're right about that.
I was told once that you could hire somebody for like $500, but I would imagine it's really fucking sloppy.
Which is actually somewhat of a bargain. So I would actually, I'm kind of curious to see what would that look like. You know,
it was in Florida.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was only a local deal. Like I think it was like a special,
kind of like a back alley special.
Maybe within a 20-mile radius or something. Yeah, I guess.
Sure.
I would worry about the quality for $500.
Yeah, I think the quality is questionable at best. I'm thinking painless, probably not. So
Yeah, I think it's like one of those things like hookers. You probably want to pay more.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure that you get a good one.
Exactly. What is it? Quality over quantity, good sir.
Exactly. All right. So we are going to launch right into it.
So we're talking about It Follows, which is director David Robert Mitchell's second feature film debut. And what a second feature film debut indeed there, Case. I mean... I
haven't seen the first one yet, but if this is the second, I would imagine the first one's amazing. I feel like ignorant in saying that I haven't seen his first movie.
Actually, and this is the deal, not many people have. So the good thing about It Follows is, of course, it's a calling card, right, so to speak. So anyway, we've got this film, which is basically in homage, a love letter, if you will. The way that I like to describe this is a blatant love letter to 80s horror, which is something that Casey and I both identify with respectfully. So,
especially like talking about Wes Craven tonight.
Oh goodness gracious! I mean, don't even get me started. And we'll get there.
We will
get there.
We will. But I'm just mentioning 80s horror.
Yes, how can you mention 80s horror and not make a mention to the great Wes Craven?
Exactly.
It's criminal.
So yeah, It Follows, the movie about a girl who is being followed by an it.
What is it, Casey?
I don't know. Ask Faith no more.
I like that. Nice reference.
But yeah, so once again, basically, if you haven't seen the movie in a while, if you haven't seen it at all, or if you just have a fuzzy memory, there's this thing that basically is passed from person to person through sexual contact. Yep. And as it gets passed along, it stops following the person that it's been following. But then if it gets to the next person and kills the next person, it starts coming back after you.
Which is kind of creepy.
kind of creepy, a little bit creepy.
Kinda.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly that's one of the things that drew me to the movie the most was like that thought that like it's not super powerful necessarily. It's not like super like the deaths aren't extremely gruesome.
No.
It's just that creep factor that I feel like a lot of movies have been missing for the last 20 or 30 years.
Absolutely.
Well, not maybe 30, but like since the 80s. I feel like that the creep factor even in the 80s, because that's when a lot of slashers started to get really
Sure.
big. Like late 70s, well, even early 70s, but mainly late 70s, early 80s was kind of that rise of the slasher film.
Absolutely.
And this kind of throws back to, I guess, fears that are on a deeper level
Sure.
than necessarily like getting stabbed to death by somebody.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, the fact of the matter is this. You've got a force that's going after you. It's not going after you very fast, mind you. It is I mean, Case, you nailed it. It's basically after you in a way that we haven't seen in some time. And you are absolutely right. This is what David Robert Mitchell did here is he pretty much took the horror genre at that, the indie horror genre. He took the indie horror genre and pretty much flipped it upside down with this film. This is a concept that, as Casey mentioned, we just haven't seen anything of the likes of this since, easily the late 80s.
Yeah, and that what I like once again the best about it is it creates a feeling of dread, which I feel like that's a word that you don't hear as much in horror anymore.
No, you don't, because everything is so, okay, gore, okay,
right, gore,
and please,
or words like terrifying,
sure,
scary, and all those things, but things like the small things like dread,
sure,
like that feeling like something's building, that I feel like people like Ty West,
okay,
who's also kind of a retro director,
sure,
with what is it, the devil movie, what was it, House of the Devil,
yes,
right,
yes. Oh, that,
so,
okay, a great
so
example.
like that was like a picture, like that was a timepiece, what's
sure,
it called, period piece, there we go,
piece.
it's like a period piece from the 70s. Talking about an homage, that is a perfect
love letter galore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like this one was one for the 80s.
Certainly.
That one was one for the 70s.
Certainly.
But that's another perfect example of a movie that it just builds and builds and builds.
It basically leaves you wanting more, and I hate to phrase it that way because it's probably the most basic way to phrase something like that, but it's true. Is you watch a film like that, and I had the pleasure of watching this film in a theater, as I'm sure
I did too.
as well.
Oh, wait, really quick anecdote about that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, please, go ahead. No.
Okay, so really quick anecdote.
Yeah.
So we went to the Music Box here in Chicago.
Oh, very, very nice.
Beautiful fucking
establishment.
Theater. If you ever
legendary in Chicago.
Oh my God! If you ever come to Chicago, it's on Southport. If you're from Chicago and you haven't been there, well, I don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Okay, really, what's wrong there?
If you come to Chicago, it is this beautiful, like old school, like theater, and I'm not talking like 80s old school. I'm talking about old.
Oh no,
old
school. The architecture alone just exudes what it is for it to be a staple. I mean, it is a staple of Chicago nonetheless, and I'll tell you, the few times, and to say few times that I've been there is just is criminal in itself. It's a great spot to watch a flick, and you know what? And that in itself is an understatement. So, Case, please.
Okay, so here's the quick anecdote. I go to the movie with a couple friends. This one really cute girl, long story short, she was eating my fucking popcorn the whole time, but I let her do it. She was one of those things where she was just kind of lightly putting her wrist over and picking it up, and then the guy to the other side also had popcorn, and she would steal his popcorn too. Yeah, but she was like cute enough that it was like some kind of horror club that I kind of nudged my way into.
Oh, really neat.
I'm not part of the club. It's just one of those things.
You're like, I am the club.
I am the entire club. No, they were going to see the movie, and I was just like, kind of like, hey, can I come with? I really want to see it. Nobody wants to see it with me. So anyway, I'm at Music Box, and
Which is a phenomenal
when we
establishment,
walk
right?
in and sit down, there's a dude up there actually playing like the organ.
Yep.
And in the fucking movie, they go to a theater
Sure.
and there's a guy playing the organ.
Exactly.
And it just blew my shit,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Actually,
Completely
that's
blew
the
my
first
shit.
thing that came to mind. There's a particular scene that Casey's referring to, where a gentleman is playing an organ. I'll tell you, in the theater, and it takes you back. The first thing you think is Music Box. So that's awesome. So please continue. What was that like for you?
Oh man, I mean that's pretty much the entire anecdote.
Wow, that was great.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
You had me at popcorn.
There was no dick in the popcorn. There was nothing.
Well,
there was nothing fun there.
Nothing at all.
Nothing like that happened. Nobody died.
Okay.
There was no actual
So that was it.
No, he didn't. He wasn't playing the organ and then got shot or something.
Oh well.
I know we're in
that's a bummer,
Chicago, but it's not on this.
Couldn't you just add a little flair for the show for
Yeah.
our fans at home?
I don't know. Zombies ate his brain. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'll
Sure,
work
let's
with
go
that. Yeah, let's do that.
Anyway, so I just thought that was a funny thing to mention because it's a beautiful theater.
Yes.
But it's more just, it was just that throwback element that we
Sure.
were discussing that's in that movie. It was kind of self-aware in a way.
Yeah.
Of that it was a movie throwing back to an older time.
Sure.
Even though I think it was set in modern day, wasn't it?
Well, see, that's an interesting question, as there really isn't any mention to a particular decade or year. However, we're led to believe that, or given certain elements, of course, in the film, that it is set in the 80s. Or is it?
I don't know. Like, I don't remember technology in that movie.
Well, there was
being
a particular scene. One of the characters uses a device. It's almost like a handheld device, almost like a Palm Pilot, if you will. And gosh, there's a phrase I haven't used in quite some time. What am I?
Those were a thing.
Right?
Those were a
Palm
thing.
Pilot.
Yeah, like remember you have to check your email on that.
Yeah. It's like, hey, can you hand me my Palm Pilot, please?
Talk about a business, like an entire industry that went under.
Isn't that something?
That entire fucking industry.
What happened to that guy?
Yeah.
Who, listen, I invented the Palm Pilot. Am I on a beach in the Bahamas having a drink or what?
It's like elevator operators.
Sure,
like,
right.
That's not
It's like
even
whatever
a
happened
thing
to them.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, or people who would like fix buggies. like your buggy would go down.
Yeah.
and like you'd hit a fucking pothole.
Yeah.
in the shitty ass
Sure.
roads from the 1800s, and your buggy'd be fucked. And there was some guy who was like, "I can fix your buggy."
Dedicated
I can
his
do
entire existence to that.
Yeah, and then the fucking, I don't know, by the 20s, it was just, there goes your fucking business.
Exactly. And due to that, we will have an entire show, not really, but based on where are they now?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly. Shitty jobs that nobody wants anyway.
Yes. But we please allow us to continue here. We're talking about It Follows. If you're just joining us, and forgive me if this is beating a dead horse, but Music Box. All right, if you're watching a film like It Follows, first off, what a privilege. But having seen a film like that at an establishment like the Music Box is a pleasure.
It was an experience.
I mean, wow,
won't
that's
forget
awesome.
that.
That's going to stay with you forever.
Yeah, until I get bumped in the head really fucking hard.
Certain.
And then everything
And then
goes
you'll
away.
forget everything.
Kind of makes you like think about the nature of self, right?
Yes. Wow.
So like if you go into a coma and come out, you can't remember who you are, and all your memories are gone.
I'm writing all this down. This is an
Right.
excellent
Are
premise.
you
This is
the-
some sort
are
of
you
a
the same person?
TV pilot. I don't know. Are
Think
you?
about it. It's kind of like, okay, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we're going way off script here.
And that's fine. And that's fine.
But-
Hey, it's our show,
Yeah,
right?
fuck it. Yeah.
So you know what? If you're listening right
paying.
now and you don't have any idea what we're talking about, not that that's the point, but that's the point. So
Okay, so the nature of being. Okay.
Yes.
So, and this is way fucking off topic. Whatever. Okay, so the nature of being. So
We'll get back to it.
apparently, and someone's gonna fact check me, and I'm gonna get a really nasty email. But apparently, your cell cycle, like every 7 years or some shit.
something like that.
Like
I
you're
suppose.
on a like a cellular level, you're a different person or
Sure.
something every 7 years.
Every 7 years.
Yeah, every 7 years. So I heard a discussion, and I've
Is
always found
is
it.
that based on what quote unquote they said? And who is they, by the way?
We can't talk about that.
Who are they? I should say. Who is they? Who are they?
We can't talk about the greater than.
We won't talk about they.
Okay.
So we'll talk about it.
Anyway, so 7 years. And I was thinking about, okay, so if it's a cellular thing, right? So this is going into sci-fi, and I've heard this discussion, I think, somewhere, so I'm not trying to steal it, but it's a fun discussion. Okay, so there's two forms of like teleportation that you see in sci-fi shows, right? So the first form is that they break you down and then they shoot your shit across space and then they reconstruct you, right?
I just got a visual.
And then
that looks gnarly. I just got a visual of shooting shit across a room.
Across space.
But like in a sci-fi. Think about that for a second. Just think about it for just a split second.
Thing, just all the
can you imagine
practical
that?
effects.
Yeah.
Oh man. Anyway,
mind blown.
Anyway, so the other form is they break you down, and then on the other side they reconstruct you from whatever the fuck they have around.
Okay.
So they reconstruct you from the ground up, but so you're an exact replica, and you're technically kind of a clone. So the question is, did you fucking die? Right? Like, that makes you wonder about the soul, right? Like, what is the human soul? What is consciousness? Because your energy didn't travel, but you're being completely reconstructed, even in the brain. Every little fucking memory that you have is just fucking brain stuff, right?
Sure.
A lot of people like to think, like, the Descartesian, like, oh, your mind and your body are separate and the soul is... Well, fuck that. No, everything you are is up in your head. So that means if you're reconstructed, if you're a clone, it's fucking you. It is you. But, like... the other you that got broken down on a cellular level, like, do you wake up on the other side, or are you just fucked? Like, you just go into nothingness like that?
Wow. What did you just do? We got people at home thinking, wait a second, we were just talking about It Follows, and here we are talking about a much more profound, deep. I mean, this is a conversation. That topic alone deserves its own podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the man, the myth, the legend, Casey Pletcher.
Yeah. So back to the movie, and I completely forgot where we were with this.
Well, I can actually remember, Case. You had mentioned that you saw it for the first time at Music Box, of all places. I unfortunately can't say the same. I did see it on opening night, but not at the Music Box.
Where did you see it?
I saw it at this theater called the Quarry, which is actually not too far from my house.
Is it nice?
You know what? It's decent. It's okay. I mean, you know, they've got an IMAX screen, whatever that means nowadays.
Guess who's not going to be our sponsor?
Hopefully they're not listening to this, because then I'm going to pretty much crap myself out of free tickets.
Right.
But
all right,
anyway.
So moving on.
Yes, moving on.
Let's go really quick into just the movie as an actual movie.
Yes.
So cinematography, directing, the palette that they used.
Yes.
You can see this on the trailer, but like that image, like the over shoulder image of like the blood and the blue water, and a lot of the darks that they use. Like it's a very shadowy movie.
It is indeed. It feels again. I mean, you haven't seen a film like this, or a film of this like since the 80s, which is particularly why I felt that it really resonated with me. Excuse me, greatly. As Casey mentioned, we got a couple of things to talk about here. The direction, cinematography, and the performances.
Especially from people that, I mean, maybe I'm ignorant to this, but I would say they're not very well-known actors. No,
I believe that some of them are guilty as charged with respect to it being their first or feature film debut, rather. So
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is indeed.
I mean, like, the acting was on par with anything that you would, I guess, at least something that fucking Michael Bay would direct.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something. I mean, they got it
better
right.
than that. Sorry to the cast of that film to compare you to a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah, and I'm more than certain that we can go ahead and think of a better comparison. But hey,
I was
that works.
shooting low.
Well, and that's what we're going for. That's what we're going for. I'll tell you that the performances are such, again, they're not well-known actors, but they don't have to be for a piece like this. This is indeed the ideal genre piece, I would say. And the fact that it's indie of all, I mean, the film did relatively well in the box office. It actually, if I'm not mistaken, is afforded the opportunity to call itself one of the most popular, if not more successful films of the year. So indie wise, of course.
Yeah, and I mean,
which is no small feat. I mean, that in itself is quite the honor.
And this is something I have not researched, but just
Sure.
that I kind of noticed is distribution shot through the fucking roof.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right. So it got that indie release, but then when all the fucking reviews started coming out, and when people were really fucking going to see that movie,
Sure.
I feel like it started getting picked up by some of the bigger cinemas.
It did in fact, and to add to that, I'll tell you that a film like this, I mean, that can be attributed to the marketing. I think the marketing was done rather well, and it left you wanting more. And that's the idea. We had a conversation earlier, basically touching base on that very topic of leaving. Less is more, basically leaving more to the imagination. And a lot of the horror films nowadays, they get that wrong. They're going for the chip. They're going for the cheap thrill. They're going for the cheap thrill, and I don't think that's. I'll tell you what. Okay, if we're talking circa 1995, then perhaps that would have worked out well. But okay, a decade later, viewers want more. Viewers want more. I'll tell you what, they deserve more. How about that?
They do. And you know what? Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't think your average viewer knows that they want more.
No, and that's the unfortunate part about it.
The people in at least the millennials, and especially post-millennial, whatever the fuck they call that generation. Yeah. But I feel like
are you a millennial?
I don't like.
Are we millennial?
I don't know.
What are we?
I fucking hate that name.
You know what? We're humans, Case.
We're people.
We're humans.
The point is, though, people born when we were born and post when we were born, if they didn't actually look into the genre too much, if they didn't go backwards, then a lot of what they grew up on was kind of post, like the real meat.
Sure.
Like the 90s had some good stuff, and we'll get into Wes Craven because Scream really did revolutionize the slasher genre.
Real quick, without really getting too deep into that topic, talk about a film, Scream, that really reinvented the wheel, so to speak.
Yes.
Reinvented a wheel that Craven himself actually had a hand in materializing.
Yes, and we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
We are definitely going to get into that. But my point being, I feel like a lot of people, unless they've gone back and watched the older movies, they grew up with kind of not even a B horror, because that's kind of funny and campy,
sure,
but just with like a shitty reimagining of the horror genre, that there were certain changes that happened in our lifetime. For instance, I really think that The Sixth Sense was amazing.
Okay.
It's a good film.
I agree.
I fucking hate M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, no.
Shyamalan Ding Dong.
I'll tell you something.
I fucking hate him. But
what?
My point being...
Let's hear it.
That was a great movie, but it did two things that shot the horror genre in the foot.
What's that?
One, it really pushed the mainstreaming of PG-13 in horror movies.
That's true.
And that fucking ruined the genre.
You think so?
I mean, there are some good ones. Drag Me to Hell, great fucking movie.
Excellent.
PG-13. But that pushed the buttons for a PG-13.
Well, you got to think of who's behind the helm, though, or who's at the helm, I should say. Raimi. I mean, Raimi, right, again, along with Craven, and, I'll bring Craven back into the mix, was instrumental for really helping to launch the genre, or relaunch it, so to speak, in the 80s.
Right. So part two, though, is the fucking child horror thing. Mm-hmm. Like, post Sixth Sense, there was just so many goddamn movies with the scary kid. Like,
sure,
the scary kid became the cliche after Sixth Sense. And that just, I don't know, like, to me, the Omen, the original Omen, not the fucking remake, the original Omen is one of my favorite horror
Actually, I need to stop you right there.
What's up?
We should I don't know, have some sort of a rule or something, the whole, okay, the R word. We'll just go ahead and say the R word because I don't like referring to, remakes and reboots and such. It's like, whatever.
Then what are we supposed to call them? Reimaginings?
That sounds classy. I can dig that.
Fucking remakes.
But see, this is the deal. If it was truly a reimagining,
when you
then
said
it
the
would
R
be.
word, I thought I said like retarded or something.
Oh goodness, you're like, oh.
I was
no.
whoops, did I hit a button there?
Yes, I without really losing the topic here, reboots and actually a fun-filled fact as we were discussing earlier, The Thing. Okay, John Carpenter's classic 1980s sci-fi horror classic, legendary at that, timeless. That in itself was a reboot. It was whatever you want to call it. A remake. It was a remake of an original concept that came out in I believe the 50s.
But it's not always a dirty word.
What's that?
It's not always a dirty word. Like the remake, or I guess the American version of The Ring.
Sure.
Was a really good movie. Another PG-13, another spooky kid movie, but it was a good movie.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that remakes or reboots are necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that they can really, I guess,
they can make or break an original concept.
Right. So anyway, moving back to It Follows. You were discussing really quickly. I think we were talking to somebody about the trailer or something, but the 80s vibe.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really caught me when I watched the trailer, and I just rewatched it, so it just clicked back in my head, was you were mentioning earlier the soundtrack.
Yes.
And one of the things that really fucking got its hooks in me when I saw that trailer is the song in that trailer.
Okay.
It just has that older movie vibe. It just reminded me of a different time period.
I'll tell you what, and I'm glad you touched base on that because the score of the film done by a project, or I guess you can call them a band, if you will, or an entity, whatever, is known as Disaster Piece. And I'll tell you, you hear the blatant, what do you want to call it? Help me out here. We're talking, I guess, influence, right?
Okay.
Influence.
Right.
Okay, Carpenter, forget thinking. Feel that, his presence was widely known in that score. If you're familiar with Carpenter films, then you know that the man pretty much wrote the book with regards to the use of synth in horror film
it really,
scores.
It kind of reminded me of like the Halloween kind of
exactly,
thing a little bit.
And I believe that's what it was meant to convey. And I'll tell you, just watching the trailer alone really takes you to that era. And gosh, I love that.
Right.
So talking about the trailer, you watch it for the first time, and it really just does a wonderful job at conveying that feeling. That feeling that, your Carpenter, your Craven, gosh, the list goes on. Masters of horror, such as these gentlemen, they pretty much wrote the book. And I'll tell you, that's why it's such a pleasure, and I'm sure you can agree, Case, to come across a gem like this.
Yeah, and even from, I guess, cinematography, directing, like the choices of shots, they were both a throwback and at the same time very, very refreshing and new.
Sure.
We were talking earlier about the wide shots that they use a lot.
Yep.
And that use of space, like it creates kind of this tension.
It's an unsettling feeling is what it creates, because you got to think about it this way. You've got a threat. The threat in the film, by its very nature, isn't all that threatening if you really think about it, because you've got something that's, literally
fucking walking.
It's not even. It's creeping is what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's not even. Walking would be. I would deem that a little quicker.
You can briskly walk.
Okay, sure.
There are speed walkers in the Olympics, aren't there?
Is that right?
I'm pretty sure
is that a
speed
thing
walking
now?
is an Olympic sport.
Is that a thing now?
I could be wrong. They got rid of fucking wrestling.
What?
But I'm pretty sure there's fucking speed walking.
I don't believe that.
They got rid of wrestling. That's a thing.
Is that
That's
so?
a fucking fact.
No way.
That is
There's
a
no
thing.
way.
And that goes back to
So
like
speed
naked
walking?
men fucking wrestling and the Greek fucking whatever Colosseums. I don't know where they did it, but the point is, yeah, I think speed walking is in the Olympics.
It's an official sport.
Is an official. Well, I know it's an official sport.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
and then they took whatever. Anyway, point being, this thing's fucking slow, which is part of what I absolutely love about it.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh man, like that concept that you could fuck off like to the other side of the country,
And this thing
like,
is
3
relentless.
weeks to a month.
All right,
It's gonna
this
pay
thing,
you a fucking
exactly.
visit.
This thing dedicates itself to finding you. All right, however long that may take. It, like I said, it could take a month. It could take a year. I mean, you could be halfway to Japan from here, and the thing. I mean, but this is the thing that really, I guess, speaks to me, is that, again, it's a horror film, and you've got this thing following you. That doesn't sound very threatening when I'm as I say that out loud, especially when I tell you that it's following you. I mean, at an extremely slow pace.
Yeah,
All right, does that sound threatening to you?
it would.
Are you
normally,
scared right now or no?
I mean, I'm scared only because of what's in my closet right now.
Oh, okay. Well, that might be a different topic.
That is a completely different topic. I will not open that.
But of course,
closet.
you know what?
You're
Keep it-
actually
well-
sitting right in front of it.
Well, I'll be mindful not to look in that direction. One.
It's kind of open right now.
And,
anyway,
yes, yes.
So the point being, actually, you brought up a really funny thought that I had
Let's hear
during
it.
the movie.
Let's
So
hear it.
everything in the movie takes place in the continental United States.
Or so we think. Actually,
Yeah, no,
yes,
it does.
Yeah.
So that is funny. What if you did go to Japan? Like, can it follow you across water?
I
Because
think-
apparently it's not good at fucking swimming.
Well, you know what? And that's a great point. That's a great point. Could it? I mean, who knows? Will there be a sequel?
It was scared of the water, right? At the end of the movie.
From what I understand,
pool,
without
it wouldn't
really,
go in.
without really giving too much away. And again, if you're just listening here or catching us, this is something that I guess presents itself as an indestructible force. Yet, like Casey mentioned, there seems to be some sort of water. It works as a deterrent.
Yeah, it's weird.
So-
I don't know how that works out. So, I guess we should transition into the themes, which I found particularly like what I really attached to. I mean, everything we talked about brought me to the theater, but watching that movie, oh man. All right, so like really quick, I was going to go with a friend of mine. I was going to take her there. Not really a date, just kind of hanging out.
Not really a date.
Not really a date. But she had to cancel. And I know that she has a really bad history of sexual trauma.
Oh.
And that movie would have fucking set her off.
Yeah, that
Holy
sounds about right.
Shit.
That sounds about right.
It's almost not even subtle. I feel like a lot of people didn't pick up quite. I mean, a lot of people got an uneasiness to it. But I feel like a lot of people didn't read as far into it. And this is my interpretation, and I could be wrong. But watching that movie, there's a few things that I noticed. First, there's no fathers in the movie. If you think about it, her father's gone. The neighbor across the street lives with his mother. They never talk about his father. So there's no father figures. There's
No
only
mention of
there's
the
only
father.
mother figures. The only time
That's
you
an
see
interesting,
a
concept,
father,
yeah.
the only time you see a
Notion.
father is the end of the movie where it almost kills her. Like the thing trying to kill her in the pool is her father.
Wow.
So that's an interesting thought to begin with. The second part,
Actually, can I just say that
Yeah.
I just realized that,
you didn't
and the
notice?
fact that you picked up on that is lovely.
Yeah, thanks. The other part is that, okay, so he takes her out, they go out, and they're having sex in the car, very 50s style. And then he knocks her out cold. She wakes up tied to a chair in her underwear. And this thing is coming after her, and he tells her about it coming after her, whatever. And then he transports her back to her house. And this is where it gets interesting. Instead of just like taking her to her house, she gets out, she goes inside. He throws her out of the fucking car with no clothes on. She's in her fucking underwear. He throws her out, and she's in the middle of the street, curled up in a ball, crying. Which to me reads as he drugged her, he raped her
Sure.
and he threw her out of the fucking car.
That's your immediate notion,
connection,
absolutely.
right? But then if you think further into it, so now she has this compulsion. She's gone through trauma. Maybe she has issues with men because of whatever happened with her father. And apparently there's something going on that it takes the image of her father when it's trying to kill her.
Yeah.
So she has issues with men. She has this sexual encounter, and it ends with something following her. And to stop it and to push the feeling away, she has to reenact that event. She has to continue to have sex with people in order for it to go away.
Or to transmit it to someone else, basically.
Or to transmit it to someone else, which at first I thought was like an STD or something. But moreover, the trauma is following her. And whenever it gets too close to her, she has to reenact her trauma in order for it to go away. And you even see, like, when she goes out to the lake and there's those guys in the boat, and she kind of like starts swimming out to the boat and it cuts away.
There's a hint towards what happens next, which
right,
is
that she got maybe gangbanged on the boat
Sure.
or something. But that is like the extreme version of people who are sexually traumatized. It's usually kind of a one way or the other thing.
Okay.
Some people become hypersexual after sexual trauma, and they reenact that event by having like sex with strangers,
almost as though they're
multiple
filling a
partners
void,
at the same time,
so to speak. Yeah.
Right, but so that scene especially, like where there's these frat guys out on the boat, so it's very college-y, and she's like basically like the banging the lacrosse team type thing.
Right.
She swims out to this boat and then bangs these guys, presumably.
Or so we think.
Or so we think. So she's continuing this cycle while the friend who's in the friend zone is constantly like, hey, why don't you give it to me? I can handle the burden. And instead, she chooses the bad boy across the street, who also doesn't have a fucking father. But she chooses the bad boy to have sex with, and then he obviously kicks the bucket. And it isn't until the end of the movie that she makes the decision to have sex with the nice guy, and then they start a relationship from there. But if you notice in the background of the end of the movie, which is what it said to me,
Let's hear it.
is that they're holding hands kind of awkwardly.
Okay.
They're walking down the street towards the camera, and in the background you see a shadowy figure that the implication is that it, in quotations, is still following. Like at the end of the movie, you see something still following them. So it could just be someone randomly in the street, or it could be it. So my thought is that even though she decides to give in and be with the nice guy, the trauma's still following her.
Sure.
It didn't solve it. She tried something different. She tried being with the nice guy, and she thinks for a little while that it's going to fix it. But a lot of girls try that. They'll go through a series of really bad abusive relationships. They'll have the rebound nice guy, and then they'll go back to their exes, or they'll go back to whatever toxic situation, because the nice guy isn't a replacement for therapy. Like, they're still hurting. So to me, that image in the distance is that shadow of doubt. That even though she's chosen to be with the nice guy that she never wanted to be with in the first place, she's chosen to go outside of her comfort zone. And maybe it went away.
Okay.
Or maybe it didn't.
Or perhaps it didn't.
So that's just
I'll tell you,
my view of that thing.
It's an interesting concept. I'll tell you that much. One of the concepts that I really I guess gravitate towards the most is the concept of the camera. All right. Well, we were talking a lot about, for instance, the direction, the cinematography, the performances and such. But I feel that the camera in itself was as vital as a component as anything else. I mean, the character in itself was a character. The camera work was a character. So the camera work, and this is reminiscent to a technique that was made famous by the one, the only Quentin Tarantino. You might be familiar with his work case.
I've never heard of the guy.
Oh, he's up and coming. I mean, the guy's got a bright future ahead of himself.
Something about Robert Rodriguez. I don't know.
Something to that degree.
Whatever.
Anyway,
continue.
So the camera, also the angles that were chosen for this particular piece, they as Casey mentioned, they do it does a wonderful job of setting up what's coming next. And also that's also attributed to the editing. I mean, the editing is somewhat fluid at times. And I, like I said, there's a particular shot towards the end where you've got an entity, or what we believe to be an entity, following the two characters, and I feel that the camera really is in it to creep us out, and the director gets it. He certainly gets it. And I mean, when discussing a film like It Follows, it's really difficult. And again, I gotta tell our listeners that it's a testament to a film like this for us to pretty much go all over the map, because you just don't know where to start. I mean, this film, like I said, it did so much for the horror genre, and I'll tell you, we're in for a treat if Mitchell continues down this path. I'd like to see, I wouldn't say a sequel, but I'd like to see perhaps another installment of this genre, if you will. So,
yeah,
what are your thoughts
definitely.
on that case?
And really quick, because we just mentioned Halloween earlier. It's funny that you mentioned the camera being a character, because of course Halloween starts with the young Michael Myers.
Sure.
Like first person with the knife as a child, which also was a sexually themed intro.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's very kind of a sexual themed
Sure.
underlying in the movies. So that in itself is kind of a throwback.
That's a very interesting notion, and one that I haven't really thought about as much, but of course one that lends itself well to that particular piece. It's something that's taboo. Or that was taboo, I should say. Now it's as normal as a discussion.
Well, that's why it has to evolve.
You know,
that's why I think the trauma element was added, because sexuality in itself is becoming more open, but sexual trauma still hasn't been fully explored in culture.
And I think you said it best. The bottom line is this: this could have been a horrible film. Okay, the concept, the whole nine. I mean, you know, to have a guy like David Robert Mitchell. Who again? This is his second feature film. I mean, he gets it, and there's really no other way to put it.
It's interesting, yeah, because like whenever I try to explain the concept to people, I'm just like, it's this thing that follows,
right? And it,
you have to have sex to get rid of it.
Exactly. It really doesn't do it justice. It doesn't do it justice. There's a lot more going on here, I think, and actually the way that your interpretation of the film, I think, was solid. But the beauty of it is, of course, as any great film, it lends itself well to several different interpretations.
True.
And I think that's
Very true.
That's wonderful. But of course, as Casey mentioned, Wes Craven, gosh, I mean, what a loss. Moving on here to the recent loss here,
Yeah.
Tremendous loss at that.
We're going to be doing that in a moment. We have a quick intermission.
Yes.
And then we are going to be continuing to part 2, which is horror-related news.
Excellent.
I hope you enjoyed our discussion about It Follows.
Yes, and like I said, I mean, I honestly feel, Case, and before we, call it for this topic here, I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface.
No, God, there's so many layers. And I'm sure that our theories, your theories, everything can be expressed on Facebook, Twitter. You can email us if you want, but that's not as fun because other people can't get involved. Fucking join our Facebook. Talk to us about it. Be like, you guys are fucking idiots. That's not what It Follows is about at all.
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
the director, and you're full of shit.
I am the director.
Surface level movie.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to say. If you want to agree with us, if you want to disagree with us,
If you want to tell us to drop dead.
if you want to tell us to drop that. We are very fucking active on social media. If you start a discussion and we jump in, it's us. We don't have an intern. We can't afford an intern. We'll probably never be able to afford an intern.
And that's okay.
Yeah, because fuck interns.
I mean, really.
What do they really
interns.
do?
I don't know.
I mean, they do like all your work for free. I can't trust somebody like that.
Actually, I'll tell you, I've met a couple of interns, and they're all right. I mean, nothing to write home about, of course, but...
Yeah. Anyway, so this has been part 1 of our podcast. Stay tuned for our quick intermission from WOLF Action News. And then part 2, we will be going into Wes Craven, not literally going into Wes Craven, Hannibal and American Horror Story. So stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to WOLF Action News. Welcome and good evening. I'm the ghost of James Dean.
And I am Kathy Bates' character from Misery.
Here are tonight's top stories. The Frankenstein Monsters Union has decided that they are going on strike. A union representative said, "We need more pay. Do lots of work. No pay, no work. Fire bad." His English is pretty terrible, but his German apparently is great. We will keep you updated on this story as it progresses, but as far as it looks, it is a standstill. The Frankenstein monsters, for no better way of calling them, union was started because they are doing what they call back-breaking labor by literally breaking people's backs, which takes a lot more strength than most people would consider. The union representative says that the strike will last as long as it needs to, because Frankenstein monsters, for lack of a better term, never age.
In other news, the Abernethys welcomed a beautiful bat baby of the male persuasion. It's reported that said bat baby escaped Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where he was born at 7:43 a.m. at an outstanding 56 pounds.
Did he fly away?
Well, if I understand correctly, he actually crawled.
That's a terrible thing for a bat baby to do.
I'll tell you, Al, it certainly is.
Moving right along, the Sasquatch situation on Lakeshore Drive has finally been handled. As most of you are aware, Lakeshore Drive traffic has been backed up for the last couple of days since a Sasquatch wandered onto the road, sat down, and refused to move. Local law enforcement was dispatched, as well as the fire departments, the EMTs, and the bears. Not even the football team could move the Sasquatch. We still have not reached the mayor for comment. His only previous thing was a mutter in which he said, "He's here out of season." So the Sasquatch has finally been moved, but not by the EMTs or the police or the firefighters or even the entire Chicago Bears. Randomly, there was a giant squid off of the shore that reached its tentacles up, wrapped around the Sasquatch, and pulled it to its watery grave. The question still remains how a giant squid is, first of all, in Lake Michigan, second of all, surviving in freshwater, and third of all, has gone undetected since civilization has come to Lake Michigan.
In other news, we have a beloved, Mexico's beloved, if you will, Chupacabra. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
I believe it's Chupacabra.
Oh, excuse me. Of course, the Chupacabra Cabra was seen reportedly at Brookfield Zoo, of all places, purchasing a cold carbonated beverage. What's currently uncertain is whether or not that beverage was of the alcoholic descent, or perhaps it was simply a Pepsi or a Coke.
Did he purchase a refreshing No One? Because I hear No One has a delicious mountain-like flavor, as you would get from the dew of a mountain. No One, our official sponsor for WOLF Action News. Thank you. We do want to remind you that tonight you must go home at 7:05 p.m. No earlier, no later. You will lock your doors. You will close your blinds and you will wait in your closet for 13 minutes. Once the 13 minutes have passed, you can leave your closet, but you still cannot go outside. Stay tuned. We will let you know when you are able to go back outside. I must warn you, the CDC has informed us that going outside may result in boils, scratches from werewolves, leeches, old women yelling at you, or your pants literally catching on fire. That has been WLF's Action News Top Stories. Remember, if it bleeds, it leads. Unless it bleeds too much, then it dies.
The Gory Details Horror Show.
Welcome back to the Gory Details Horror Show. Once again, I am Casey.
And I am Eric from the Relevant Reel, coming at you live, coming at you hard. And what the hell is going on, Case?
We're not live.
Well, we are all live, right? So that, I mean...
Speak for yourself there.
Okay, I get you. I see where you're
Yeah,
going with that. I
yeah.
see what you did there.
See?
And,
Because it's a horror show.
Did you just call me whore?
Yeah, maybe.
That's a tough word to say. I gotta tell you, and I hate that because I love the horror genre. I feel like I gotta like have an accent, like the horror. You know,
Yeah,
I'm the
no,
horror
I'm
genre.
with you on that because like
You know?
every time I say like it's a horror show, I'm like it sounds like it's a horror show.
Exactly, and I feel horrible.
It's a horror
I'm like,
show,
and
right?
I talk about horror often, enough for it to
Right.
be basically for me to notice, that it sounds like horror. I'm like, hey, the other day I was watching a horror movie, and excuse me, yeah, that's right, a horror movie.
A horror movie. Someone
you
got
do
stabbed.
realize,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, that's a snuff flick. That's what that is when somebody gets stabbed.
Oh,
Right?
So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyway, listen, we want to go ahead and thank everybody for tuning in. This is our second installment, and we're pretty happy about that. And
Yeah, I'd say
stoked
so.
and all that good stuff.
Yeah, stoked and toked.
Speaking of stoked,
I don't smoke.
no, but we're
I'm
smoking.
sorry, I
but-
said that. Now I feel
But
like
he's smoking hot. How
Yeah,
about
okay.
that?
I am.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
guy too.
Okay.
You're, you
Okay.
know, ladies out there.
Oh, jeez.
This guy's
I'm
married.
Taken. I'm
He's
taken.
married.
I'm off the market. As
Sorry,
they say.
all the ghouls will have
all the
to
ghouls,
wait.
guys,
Yeah.
girls, whatever, trans, whatever you're into,
But
Yeah.
till death do you part, right?
till death do us part, indeed.
So does that mean if they bring you back?
If they bring me back, then I suppose that's inaccurate. That's an inaccurate statement.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. So they just have to wait. I don't know how old are you? Like 30?
I'm 30. I'm like 30.
Okay, so maybe 60 years, if that.
Okay.
And they're undead anyway, so it doesn't
Sure.
really matter.
Hey, let's make it happen, Captain.
There you go.
So,
I'm sure your wife's gonna appreciate that.
I'm sure she will. A shout out to my lovely wife.
I'm
so
not,
back to the
I
matter
am
at
not
hand.
married.
He is not married, but
I'm
ladies,
not
I
married.
should note
There you
that he is available.
I am available.
And for only 5 easy payments of $67.95, he can go to your house and have dinner with you.
I will.
In fact, Case, do you cook?
I can cook okay.
You can cook. Oh, what does that mean? Like grilled cheese? What does that mean? Like SpaghettiOs? What are we talking?
More like I'll bring my fillet knife
Fillet.
and I'll tie her down.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I'll take a bit of her thigh
You're
and I'll
sadistic.
fry that up.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, it tastes like bacon.
I believe you.
It tastes like bacon. I don't eat pork,
Sure.
but I eat people.
I don't eat pork,
And
but
people
I eat,
taste like pork.
how about this? I don't eat pork, but I eat like a pork. How about a porker? Or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's been one of the hashtags
like
I've been
pork,
doing.
right?
Hashtag people taste
Yeah.
like pork. I want that to spread. I want people to start using
Let it
that
spread.
in completely
In
inappropriate
fact,
situations.
listen, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, you're listening to this right now. You just heard it first from the what's mouth? What should I say? I was gonna say
what?
the horse's mouth, but it's
The
inappropriate because
the
we're talking
pig's
about
mouth?
pork. The pig's mouth. There you go.
Yeah.
You heard. We heard it first from the pig's mouth.
Yeah.
What was it? Hashtag. What was it again?
People taste like pork.
People taste like
Yeah.
pork. So hashtag people taste like pork.
I was actually trolling Wendy's the other day because
Were
they
you
said
really?
that.
And it's
they said,
ironic
like,
because I got you Wendy's tonight.
yeah, you did,
Yeah.
and they said it worked. I guess for them,
you liked it.
It worked out.
Yeah.
But they were saying it's like $4, and I'm like, oh,
What's $4?
some meal is like $4.
Okay.
And they use the word bucks. So I'm like,
Bucks.
oh yeah, I have $4 hanging on my wall or some
Oh,
shit
wow.
like that.
You know what's crazy is this podcast has now turned you into like a sadistic fuck, and that's okay. I mean, actually, you've always been that way. What am I even saying?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
I
as
also
a-
noticed how much I use the word fuck
Yes,
listening
you do.
back
In
to
fact,
part one.
just like I mentioned earlier when we were having a discussion, if a sailor and a truck driver had a what do you want to call it, a one night stand, you, my good sir, would be the product of that, and that's a good thing. I mean, you know what? Hey, to hell with it. Anyway, back to the show.
Back to the show.
Back to the show.
That was a long aside.
But hey, you know what? Our viewers, I'm certain, are getting a chuckle or two or three or four or five.
Listeners.
Our listeners,
Okay.
and viewers,
So-
hopefully soon.
What? Yeah. What?
I don't know. I just threw that out there. You know, this is our second show.
Maybe with binoculars.
Okay,
Through
maybe
our
there's
window?
a creep. Maybe there's a creep outside currently trying to peep in. You know, you do that.
There
that
is, but that's irrelevant to the podcast.
It sure is. I try to make
we
it.
just started the
I try to make it
podcast,
relevant,
so there's
yes.
no way that he's.
You never know. I mean,
I
you
don't
know,
know.
maybe there's someone who prior to the podcast developed an affinity for you. Who knows? You never know.
Yeah, I've been active on Twitter.
Okay, there you go.
Twitter at Gory Details
That's
HS.
Check it out.
Let's check it out. Okay, so anyway, let's go ahead and move forward. So, part 2, of course, we are going to discuss, I guess is the appropriate word.
Sure.
Horror-related news. Horror-related news.
Horror.
Horror-related news.
Horror-related news, honey.
So, which one did you want to start with today, Eric? Because we have 3 main topics here.
Oh gosh, Case. You know what? I'm taking a look at this right now. I mean, as you can see, I've got a novel of notes here.
Yeah, you can hear the papers
and
ruffling.
you know what? I think I'm kind of torn because I feel that it's appropriate to start the show off with a tribute.
With a
tribute
tribute?
to Wes Craven.
That's a good
but
idea.
But then again, I feel it appropriate for us to close the show out that way. But you know what? Let's start it off that way.
Let's
We're gonna go ahead and start
Yeah,
off
I was
the
going to
show.
say that'd probably be the best way to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, it seems most appropriate. So one of the things that we wanted to go ahead and start discussing here with regards to Wes Craven and just his unbelievable legacy within the horror genre and, of course, within the realm of cinema is what he meant to us, what his contribution to film meant to us, you know?
Exactly. I feel like if you want to get the news on this, there's a million different resources for that. Okay, of course, he died Sunday, August 30th. He was 76 years old. He died from brain cancer. So that's your news portion of what we're going to be discussing because it's not really about that.
Yeah, the focus is not on, okay, this is how he passed and so, and we're going to give you all the details like Casey said. Our intention is really just to amplify our appreciation for his work. And one of those things, or I should say an approach that we're going to take, and we're going to go ahead and start off and kick it off here by discussing our favorite Wes Craven film, our most preferred, if you will, and what that film meant to you, and why you consider it as such. So, Casey, if you want to go ahead and
Yeah,
kick it off.
Man,
Kick it off, pal.
I would have to say, okay, so like favorite can be a tough word.
I don't like that
but-
word. I actually don't like that word, favorite. You know, I
Maybe more most influential.
okay,
Something.
yeah, or most impactful.
There you go. Like, yeah, what had an
What hit
impact
you?
on our
What hit
actual
you hard?
lives?
You know, what is
Yeah.
something that resonated with you in such a way that you can still recall it like the first time you saw it, basically.
Right. So for me, I'm gonna go the non-obvious route.
Let's hear it.
There were 2 I think that had the biggest effect on me.
Okay.
The first one is Last House on the Left,
Excellent choice.
which is the first movie that actually exposed me to the rape revenge genre.
Sure.
I Spit on Your Grave, films like that.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? It's a whole thing, which is really funny because they remade Last House on the Left, right?
And I Spit on Your Grave.
And
Yeah.
within like 2 years of each other,
Yes,
right?
that's true.
Isn't that weird? Like they
It is a
tried to
little-
resurge the rape revenge film.
Yeah, and to no avail. I mean, unfortunately so, because it's, you know, first off, okay, those films in their own right are just classics, right? The originals, at least.
Right.
I have to be honest with you when I state that I didn't really bother with the remakes.
Okay, so here's what you need to know about the remakes. First, the originals, as vile as they were, also they had like a level of camp to them.
Sure. Appropriately so, wouldn't you say?
I don't know.
Well, given the time and the era, right?
Yeah, but given the subject matter. But anyway,
Okay.
So the point being, there was like kind of a level of camp to them that made them really stick out. For the remakes, I feel like they tried to go gritty with it.
Of course.
So
Shock
they
value.
made it darker, and I don't know, like they changed a few key elements of the story that really made it revenge. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
I wish I could remember exactly how the first film, the original Last House on the Left went, but if I remember correctly,
Give it a shot.
one of the girls might have either did or didn't survive, and they changed that for the sequel.
You know,
I can't remember.
That seems likely.
Yeah.
Likely, and I'm a little ashamed. Being that okay, now this is a reminder for me to revisit that film.
Right.
You know.
All right. So anyway, moving forward with that.
Sure.
So Last House on the Left, we're going to start with that. One of the things that, besides like the genre itself being shocking, because like, I don't know, that was at a time in filmmaking where they had just pushed past like conservatism.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the word. Okay.
Conservative.
Conservatism. Okay, so anyway, they had just pushed back past that. 50s were over. The 60s kind of added a new liberation.
Sure.
Exploitation films were on the rise.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right. So that's the time period that movie came out. And they obviously wanted to push the envelope in cinema all around. Like that was part of what the 70s was. It was just pushing it as far as they could.
Oh, definitely.
Which is like why things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out in the late 70s, right?
Correct.
So that was it late 70s?
No, it was mid 70s.
Okay.
Mid to late.
Okay. So the point is, that was one of those strong reactions to going the opposite way with it,
sure.
with pushing it as far as it can. But even that movie, it's so funny because that movie gets so much credit for being so vile, but
And yet there's hardly a drop of blood. There, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a drop of blood. That's part of the beauty of that movie. Actually, a lot of people don't know that there's hardly any blood in it.
right,
All right, and yet it's considered one of the most violent films of all time.
right. So it's just I find it interesting, mainly also because most people don't pay attention to that depth of cinema.
Okay.
That like they've heard of Texas Chainsaw Massacre because when they were a little kid, they went to like a haunted house and they saw somebody with a Jason mask with a chainsaw for some reason.
Yeah.
And they associated that, and then they went back and maybe watched it, or they watched the remake or whatever. So people, it's a household name. Texas Chainsaw is
a brand,
household name.
you
It's a
know,
brand.
yeah.
But beyond that, like the rape revenge films to me were way more offensive, like way more, and not just like offensive because there's nudity, but like
Subject matter.
But to your sensibilities were offended.
Oh, absolutely.
As opposed to kind of Texas Chainsaw was kind of like weird, creepy,
But
whatever.
it stopped. There was an extent, basically, or I should say a limit to that. You know, the thing, as you mentioned, with the rape genre, horror genre, it's a touchy one, man. I mean, you know, it's not the easiest topic to approach.
Right. And the thing about that movie is he did not approach it in what would be an appropriate way.
No.
And which is why when the movie was remade, it was remade in a way for its era. If they tried to remake it the way it is now, now, it would have caused the problems. Like take the movie Heathers. Have you seen Heathers?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Christian Slater.
Yes.
Winona Ryder. Yeah.
Yes. So I've heard it very appropriate. I can't speak today. Appropriately described that movie could not be made today.
You know what's interesting about that is I read an article not too long ago stating the same thing.
Yeah, because I mean, like the way that they treat homosexuality,
Exactly.
the way that they treat like
It's a different time. It's a different
it was
time,
a different time.
you know?
And that's kind of what it was for Last House on the Left, and that's kind of one of the reasons it probably should have been left in the past. Anyway,
I'm glad you brought that up, though. That's a solid point because, and that in itself, before you continue, is the problem with remakes nowadays, is the fact that, all right, certain films, at least in their original representation, should be left in a certain era. Like you mentioned, Heathers wouldn't work today because of obvious reasons.
Exactly. So, yeah. So the movie, I guess, finally kind of pushing towards the movie. There was the scene that I found kind of was the signature for me. It was that kiss on the envelope for me.
Mm-hmm.
Was when they're after they've violated the girl and they've just kind of fucked with her, like mentally as well. They're stabbing her to death, and they start pulling out her intestines,
Mm-hmm.
and they're playing with her intestines, and it's not like a violent, cruel thing,
Sure.
which they did not remake in the remake. They didn't really go through that. But it's not like I'm gonna rip out your guts. Like, they're very gleeful when they're doing it, and the soundtrack to that is what fucks you.
Oh, yeah.
The soundtrack, because it's got that really upbeat, happy music while they're ripping her guts out, and they're smiling and they're playing with their guts, and it's got that like really happy music.
Sure.
And I feel like directors like Rob Zombie, I feel like we're very influenced by that kind of that scene specifically.
Definitely. I mean, it's evident. It's evident in his approach, and also, the type of characters that he writes.
Yeah, that level of brutality, while at the same time trying to keep some sort of mania, like some humor in the characters.
Which is tough. I mean, especially when you're tackling, especially when you're tackling subject matter such as that.
Yeah, so like, speaking of Rob Zombie, so like I tried rewatching Devil's Rejects.
Which is a fine film.
It is. A few months ago, I tried rewatching it. Tried is the keyword.
Can you elaborate a little more on the tried?
I will. But that is kind of, that movie specifically is almost like it's almost like an homage to that one scene. Like, those manic characters having so much fun murdering somebody is basically the entire movie Devil's Rejects. Like, that is...
You want to hear something that'll probably blow your mind?
What's that?
And you may already know this.
What's that?
Considering that you're such a big fan of the film.
Yep.
One of the things that they did, they being the crew and Rob Zombie and such, allegedly, is that they screened The Last House on the Left.
You're shitting me.
For the crew.
You're shitting me.
Nope.
Wow,
Yeah.
I called that one.
You sure did.
I didn't know
Seriously.
that.
Which is why, as soon as you mentioned that, I said, "Yeah, this guy gets it," because that's
fucking
yeah.
hilarious.
But I'll tell you. I mean, yeah, you're right. There are tons of similarities. I mean, the influence of Craven's work is evident in not only Zombie's work. You got cats like Eli Roth. I mean, these are the new bearers, so to speak, of the torch. These are the cats that are going to be running with the torch once your Carpenters are gone. And unfortunately, so just recently Craven. Once all these guys,
Clive Barker.
Barker, goodness gracious,
Jeez.
don't give that in itself deserves another just its own podcast.
Speaking of remakes, aren't they remaking? He did Hellraiser.
He did Hellraiser,
and they're remaking that, aren't they? Or they're discussing remaking it.
supposedly it's in the works, and you know how that goes.
There was only one Hellraiser that they made that didn't have, I don't remember the actor's name, but the actor who played Pinhead for like the first 8 movies or whatever it was.
Doug,
God, I've seen him. I feel like I've seen them all, but it's
I've actually met him at conventions.
Yes, so there's only
He's a nice
one.
guy.
Only the last movie didn't have him in it, and he said no because the script was so bad that he thought that it would just like ruin the image.
Oh yeah, and I
he wanted
actually
nothing to do with
I
it.
sat through that film, and it was hard sitting through that film. It was tough. It was painful.
The point is, like,
Yeah.
just like Robert Englund is, here we go, Wes Craven.
Here we go.
Just like Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger.
Sure.
As you saw when it was, I don't know, it was produced by Michael Bay or something, right?
Something like that.
Fucking hate Michael
Here we go,
Bay.
Mike, with Michael Bay again. You
I
hate him.
really hate him.
You really hate him.
I mean,
you know what's
it's
funny?
palpable.
I'll tell you something, and it's Evan. You're fired up right now. I mean, really, look at you. You're
really
glowing,
hate
pal. You're like glowing. You ever see a like a pregnant woman, right? And she's glowing, She's, this is
You
you
call
right
me a
now.
pregnant woman?
I'm saying that the likeness, all right, of your
call me fat, buddy?
of your glow, the likeness of your glow is reminiscent to that of a pregnant woman. And I'm doing this. I'm actually for our listeners out there. I'm just I don't know what I'm doing with my hands right now. I'm doing this
I don't
really
know what you're
crazy
doing with your hands
hand
either.
gesture, and I'm like loving it.
Anyway. Jinx.
No, triple jinx.
I'd say you owe me a Coke, but you bought me a Coke.
I did.
So you don't
I
owe
did.
me
Gosh, I
anything.
had a really good conversation about Coke today. But anyway, that's another story. Yeah.
So Last House on the Left.
Yeah.
So that scene in particular really stuck in my head. I love the revenge at the end. I
Sure.
love the Home Alone element.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I
Where
know
they set up
exactly
all
what
the
you're saying.
traps and shit.
Oh gosh, actually, okay. Again, this is gonna blow your mind. But John Hughes, who directed Home Alone, I believe, circa 1991, was said to have cited Wes Craven's Last House on the
No
Left.
shit.
I'm not kidding you. I'm like blowing your mind right now. Seriously, this is how much of an impact. This is how much of an impact his work had on people, and how appropriate is it that we're just talking about this? Because
I can't
really,
believe like just
okay,
drawing the parallels.
well, you got someone like John Hughes who basically, 80s. I mean, the guy's synonymous with 80s pop culture,
Right.
even early 90s. Anyway, the fact that that a director like Craven can inspire a director like Hughes, because they're genres apart, okay, night and day.
Right.
Just speaks volumes to the type of work that Craven does. I know you're like,
it's
are you
unbelievable.
you're still like having a moment, right? You're like,
No, it's blowing my mind
What's
that it's
that?
not only one movie, but it's two fucking movies that I've drawn the parallels to that happen to be there.
I know, and this is what's crazy about it is, okay, look at us. We're talking about one film here. The guy's actually
No, we haven't
Yeah,
even
we
passed.
haven't even
this one
scratched the
film.
surface.
Which really quick.
sure.
There's the buddy stupid cops in Last House on the Left. I feel like zombie wise, wasn't there something like that in Devil's Rejects? Something about the cops.
Yeah, there was.
Okay,
There
so
was.
that was another.
Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
I just wanted to make sure.
Man, I'm telling you, this is. That I want to watch that film now.
Jeez, Rob.
But this is the thing.
Plagiarism much?
I actually real quick. I know.
No,
I
no.
call it
I
a
love Rob
tasteful
Zombie, don't get me
homage.
wrong.
I call it a tasteful homage. Tarantino does the same thing.
Right.
A lot of people, not to drift, but a lot of people actually tend to, call these guys they're ripping off someone. I'm ripping off a movie. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'll ask you in a second. Personally, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
It's your own rendition, basically.
Right,
a
and like
cover, if you will.
And once again, I don't mean to at all insult the man, the myth, the legend. Not
Who's that?
me,
Who's that? Oh,
Rob Zombie.
okay.
I seriously, like, I don't know. I remember one night I tried to find an email address. This was like a few years ago. I tried to find any way to contact him because there was no way to get through to him.
Really?
There was like no
What
way.
compelled you?
Because I was thinking, like, I really want to read a biography about this guy. And I wanted to see
Zombie.
if there was one or if he was going to make one. Because he does everything I've ever wanted to do. He was involved in comic books. He was involved in music.
Right.
He was involved in film. These are the three things that I have personally set out to do.
Sure.
I want to be involved in film. I want to be involved in comics. I want to be involved in
Let me
music.
stop you there.
Yep.
Forget all that. You are involved in film. You are involved in music, and you are involved. What was the third one?
Comics.
Comics. Okay.
I'm not involved in comics
simply, you will be. How about that?
Yes.
Okay.
I am writing a comic book script.
Oh, there you are. Look at you.
Ooh,
See,
art is
ladies and
expensive.
gentlemen, if you're just catching us here at the Gory Details Horror Show, Casey, the guy's a damn onion.
This guy.
And you're probably wondering why. I mean, the guy's got layers. What can I say? I could have probably said he's like a cake, but he would have gotten offended. You know what I mean?
I would have definitely got offended.
Yeah.
But yeah, so moving past Rob Zombie because we're on Wes Craven right
Yes,
now.
sir.
This is a long answer to that question, and I'm going to ask that question right back to you.
Okay.
But part two is Scream.
Yes.
That was the other one that had the biggest impact on me.
Okay.
Once
That's
again,
interesting.
No, maybe not my favorite of his films.
Okay, but it had the biggest
But
impact. on you?
had probably even more than Last House on the
What?
Left. That had the
Really?
biggest impact on me as
gotta hear
a
this.
horror viewer.
Let's hear it.
When I was a kid growing up, I was
Because that came out circa 1996, was it?
something
I believe
like
so.
that.
Yeah.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, when I was a kid, I hated horror. I was terrified of it. I wanted nothing to do with it. I know some adults who are still like that, but still, I just was not a horror fan to the point.
Really?
To the point where when Nightmare Before Christmas came out, which makes me think that Scream may have come out later. I don't remember. Anyway, when Nightmare Before Christmas came out, I have a very early memory of my little sister and my older sister and my dad.
She's listening to this going, you prick.
No, she wants to be my little sister.
Oh, she wants to be your little sister.
Yeah, she wants to change the year on her email. She told me today.
What?
So
Really?
she comes off as younger because it's like
Okay.
whatever year, and she wants to bump the year. Anyway, that's irrelevant. The point is,
hold that thought. I take it she's listening tonight, right? Or she will be.
she will be
Right,
yeah.
not tonight, but she will be eventually.
if she supports my work.
If she supports you.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, you want to say a little something to her? Hey,
So-
how you doing, sis? How are you? That sort of thing?
No, I can say that on the phone.
Gotcha.
Anyway,
All right.
so she's
our show.
downstairs with my dad. They're watching Nightmare Before Christmas.
Okay.
And I just couldn't. I walked downstairs. I gave it like 10 seconds. It was still the intro. I remember the witches were flying around.
Right.
You know what I mean? When they're underground, whatever. They're
Right,
flying around.
yeah, sure.
I love that movie. But anyway, that spooked me out too much. I had a very vivid imagination as a kid. Like, I used to think that my imagination was after me, man. Like, I used to think I'd see like a head in the furnace.
Wow.
And I have a very vivid memory in my head that obviously isn't real of me sitting there eating Cheerios and like fingers with like kind of claws, like yellow, like whitish purple hands with like yellow
Goodness.
long fingernails, like wrapping around the door frame into the kitchen.
Look at you.
And I have that memory, and I know it's
disturbing.
not real.
Yeah.
But that's how vivid my imagination was to me when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I'm sure everyone's is like that to some extent.
Sure.
Maybe not necessarily with horror, but people have imaginary friends.
Definitely.
And that's interesting because do you have memories from your childhood that are just not real?
You mean like a figment or something, or?
Yeah, but that you actually remember, not like I had an invisible friend, but like you actually like remember that thing talking to you or seeing that thing.
Okay, we're treading into a certain type of territory that's I won't want to open discussions for ghosts and so far. Dream-like indeed.
Like Nightmare Before
Ladies and
Christmas.
gentlemen, give it up for
Not Nightmare
Lacey
Before Christmas.
Fletcher
Nightmare
here
on Elm Street.
Night
My head is
Talk.
on the wrong.
No,
Anyway,
yeah.
so circling back, I'm sorry.
To answer your question, no,
Okay.
not really. But I've seen things, but I haven't really experienced anything where it's like, oh hey, I got. Oh sorry, watch out for my friend Phil here. I'm sorry. Yeah, my friend Phil.
No friend, Phil.
No friend Phil.
No
Phil's
friend
not.
Phil.
Phil's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I just watched this documentary. I think it's called Nightmare. That's on sleep paralysis.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, that's
Wait a second.
really
wait a
good
second.
movie.
Wait a second. This just came out this year, correct?
Yeah, they reenact it.
Yes,
So
I'm
it's
familiar.
like part horror movie.
Yeah.
Part that
I've
one.
seen. I haven't seen it yet. Okay.
This
But
is going back to Wes Craven,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah, and it will. I know.
No. I mean, right now it is. So that
Okay.
movie actually discusses that Wes Craven's influence
Sure.
for Nightmare on Elm Street
Yep.
came from that series of, I think, 5 people who died from sleep paralysis.
Yes.
Because it was so vivid, it gave them heart attacks.
That's intense.
So they actually mentioned that in the movie, which is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of repeated, which I think we should go into Insidious at some point. But they made parallels that Insidious is actually about sleep paralysis.
I can see that.
Which is fascinating because
Yeah, that is.
the old hag is actually a sleep paralysis thing that people see in old lady. The shadow figures, it's
I
very...
just got chills right now thinking about that. Actually,
Yeah.
seriously.
So the shadow people is a staple in sleep paralysis. And if
Actually,
you
know what's interesting about that? I actually just got chills with the shadow people because I've had instances where, and I'm sure more than likely you can relate, where you're falling asleep, or let's say like you wake up in the middle of the night or in the middle of a dead sleep, and you feel like something is on top of you, and you're trying to scream, and you're trying to get up, and you can't. You know, that's typical,
that's where,
right? Yeah.
That's where the incubus came from.
Okay.
That's what an incubus is.
Sure.
It's sleep paralysis.
Yep.
I mean, theoretically. But
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So the shadow people, drawing a parallel to Insidious, there's a lot of scenes of the devil creature that's trying to take the kid's soul. Or trying to take his body or whatever. You see it in the corner a lot, and it's all in shadows. So that's apparently a throw to the shadow people.
To the sleep paralysis.
Yeah, so he's also in a sleep-like state that, once again, a lot of people who have sleep paralysis say that they've had outer body experiences where they watch themselves.
Isn't that something?
Which is, he says that he leaves his body to go to the land of the dead, basically.
Wow.
So leaving the body, third person, another thing for sleep paralysis. So apparently the theory is that the movie is a drawing, like a painting of what sleep paralysis is for people.
That's an interesting concept, and one that I can certainly gravitate towards.
Which
I wasn't that, particular, or really, I don't know. The film didn't really speak to me that much, but now that you mentioned that,
yeah, it's interesting now.
I can dig it a little more.
I only had, I think, one real moment, which, by the way, that movie, it only freaked me out so much because they were talking about in the movie how it almost spreads sometimes like a disease.
What's that now?
Sleep paralysis.
Okay. It spreads like a disease, you're saying?
Yeah, they were saying in the movie, like one guy was talking about how he was trying to explain it to his friend, that these shadow people come. He wakes up, but he's not fully awake, but he's paralyzed, and he can see these shadow people.
Okay.
And he said the next day his friend called him yelling at him because as soon as she went to sleep that night, she saw the shadow people.
You're serious?
So she started getting sleep paralysis after he described it to her.
Wow.
Which makes sense because it's a stress disorder. So, like,
Sure.
I guess if you implanted that into certain people's heads, that they could experience something like that. So hopefully you guys don't have that now. But I had one moment. I was back when I was actively using. I was like really fucking high, and I lay down to go to sleep, and I've always just thought it was just me being stoned out of my gourd and just hallucinating.
Okay.
But they describe the shadow people also as sometimes looking staticky.
Sort of distorted.
Right. Well, I mean, like more like TV static.
Okay.
Well, I was laying down on this couch, my friend's couch, and this thing walks over. I see it kind of walking over.
And this is as a child, or?
No, I was stoned. I was an
Okay.
adult.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah.
So I see it walking over, and it's very kind of staticky. Like, no white, but it's like a grayscale static.
Okay.
And it's definitely a person. It's the figure of a person. And it starts walking over towards me, and I realize I can't move. And it reaches down, and it actually starts choking me.
Oh, wow.
And I could feel it choking me. Like, I could actually, like, feel myself losing breath. I could feel its hands around me. And they mentioned in the movie that some people actually do experience pain during sleep paralysis.
That's intense.
Like, they'll feel cuts. They'll feel like... So that...
Actually, can I say something real quick to add to that? And this will somewhat, I guess, enhance for our listeners at home. This will enhance Casey's story, or at least creep you the fuck out even more than you already are. I've been known to wake up with scratches on my body.
Yeah?
Yeah, like serious scratches. I'm not talking like just like, oh yeah, I got an itch and I'm scratching. I'm talking, like something's like legitimately hacking away at me.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm trying like drawing blood. That's how severe.
Your wife doesn't have night terrors, does she?
No, and she wears mitts to sleep. Not.
What?
I kid. No, I was just trying to.
Okay, I thought that was serious.
A little humor. A little humor.
One sec. So, and it's funny, in that movie, once again, they were talking about Wes Craven, and one of the things somebody saw was like this mechanical arm that would come up, and it would like grab down and kind of like pull on the sheets.
Okay.
And like stab him, and it was very it was very reminiscent of the scene with the tub.
Okay.
It was very much like that's the way that in the movie it
Where the
looked
glove
like
comes out of the surface of the water.
Exactly, except it's the bed, but it comes
see.
out like around his crotch and grabs around his
wow.
crotch.
Okay.
Which is, God, that would suck. But
Yeah.
anyway, so Scream.
Yeah.
So my point is, when I was
Yes.
a kid, I was terrified of horror movies. I wouldn't watch any. The first horror movie I actually remember that I could sit through was Scream. So that's I believe, if I'm correct, that's the first horror movie I ever actually watched.
Wait a second. Just
Yeah.
wait a darn minute, good sir, because you mentioned this. I want to say you mentioned it during the last podcast.
No, I don't
Perhaps
think so.
it was
Did I?
during a discussion that we had.
Well, not last, maybe part one is the
Part
same
one.
podcast.
Well, I know you'll have to forgive me. I'm getting acclimated. Anyway, we had a discussion for the listeners that are currently listening to us at home. We thank you. We had a discussion, Casey and I, about that very topic, about Scream being the first horror film that he's seen, that he's been subjected to, whatever you want to call it, however you want to verse it. I'm kind of having a hard time understanding that. I mean, no, listen, I think it's awesome. I think it's great. But the thing is, this film came out in '96, right? And for it to be the first horror movie that you actually screened or checked out,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm kind of like, wow, that's awesome. You don't hear that often, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Right, and the thing that's interesting about it too is that,
But it was a good film.
well, it was a good film, but it's also post horror, like it's like post slasher,
Oh, sure.
self-aware.
Well, actually,
So-
and you mentioned something earlier. You said something to the degree of like it rejuvenated the slasher genre.
Right, because it's so meta.
Sure. Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
And it was so self-aware,
Yeah.
and now
That's what was probably the best about it. Wouldn't you say that was like
Right.
the best aspect of it?
But the thing is, like nowadays, it's so cliche for things to be so meta that you're
Yeah.
just like, if you go back and watch Scream now, you just be like, I don't get it, because
Or it
everything's
might feel
so
dated,
fucking
perhaps.
meta.
Do you think? Would you say that it feels dated?
I don't think it's necessarily dated. I think because since then, in even just in media in general, everything's become so self-aware that calling attention to what something is during that thing happening is like a cliche at this point.
Okay, I see
For
what you mean.
for this generation that grew up with movies like Scream,
Okay.
and post that, I'd say kids who are coming up these days, who are maybe 13 or 16 or whatever, they're getting their first experience of horror movies, and maybe they're seeing Scream on fucking TBS or something censored, but still they're
Right.
seeing it. Maybe the first horror movie they've ever seen,
True.
and they're watching it going, yeah, of course, everybody knows the rules. Because that's just now how it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you watch zombie movies and people are never like, what are these things? They're just like, oh, they're fucking zombies.
Yeah, like
let's
fucking
shoot them in the
run.
head.
Yeah, just
Yeah, but like, Night of the Living Dead, it wasn't like, oh, they're fucking zombies, let's shoot them in the head. It was like, what are those things?
Yeah.
They're coming after us.
And gosh, that was such a wonderful time for horror if you think about it, because it's sort of like, okay, just like you mentioned, you've got these things, zombies, okay?
Right.
It's like they didn't have a manual back then.
Yeah, and,
You know what I
and
mean?
traditionally at that time period, zombies were voodoo zombies. So
And
they were being
actually-
controlled.
And oh man,
What?
you're going full circle with the Craven references here
Here
without
we
even
go again.
realizing
Here
it.
we go
Seriously,
again.
you're going crazy tonight. He's a loose cannon, folks. Jeez.
I think we're getting into your favorite.
Actually, you know what? What a perfect transition indeed. But are you?
I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
Well, no. First off, I mean, I'll tell you what. The fact that you mentioned that that you your fondness for these films is inspiring, and I want to check them out again, basically. So I want to go ahead and check them out. But aside from that, I also want to go ahead and let everybody know that the one film that had an impact on me as a child, I believe I was 3 years old. Yes, 3 years old.
Damn.
Was the Serpent and the Rainbow. And this is a film that has a lot to do with voodoo zombification, if
Right.
you will. And I'll tell you, it was one of the first films, at least for me. And I'll tell you what's crazy about this whole deal. And I'm having kind of a hard time grasping this reality or this notion. But okay, so Scream is your first venture or exposure to horror,
Yeah, like pop the horror cherry.
right? And it
Violently
was it bloody?
pop the horror cherry.
You were bloody, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
First timer.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Okay.
All right, anyway.
So anyway, I just literally realized or came to the conclusion that my first horror film was The Serpent in the Rainbow. I'm like totally
So you're
being
telling me
legit.
that both of our first
Isn't
horror
that
films
wild?
were Wes Craven movies?
And this is something that I would go on. I mean,
Shit.
I would go on. I'm 30 now, and I forget that. And it actually wasn't until I was writing this piece or just writing up some notes on Craven that I realized that that's the first film that really just spoke to me with regards to horror and said, hey, you know what? Come on in.
God, that's fascinating.
And there's a particular scene in the film where there's a gentleman, if you will, and he's buried alive, or so we think, because actually he's coming back from the dead. So herein lies your reference, the voodoo zombie and such. And anyway, the film had a profound impact on me. I mean, I get chills just thinking about that scene, and it just forever spoke to me. So it's an honor. It's an honor to say that yes, The Serpent and the Rainbow, Wes Craven, one of, in my opinion, an observation. I'll tell you that I think it's his finest work.
Really?
Yes, I will go. I dare. Dare I say that it's his finest
Okay.
work? Indeed, I do. Indeed, I do. And like I said, it's a matter of perspective. Everybody has a different interpretation of what that means to them.
Is it still on Netflix? It was
is
on Netflix
indeed.
before.
It is indeed.
Okay,
It
so,
still is,
so
yep.
the listeners here can actually go.
Yes, please
and
check
right
it out.
after right after this
Literally,
podcast.
right
they
after.
Can go, they can go
Get
check
off
it
your
out.
ass and go check it out.
So yeah, and the thing, like, we haven't seen the Voodoo Zombie in like forever.
No, I mean,
And-
when's the last time you can remember seeing that
Voodoo
rendition
Zombie?
or that?
Probably that movie.
Seriously?
I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, one of my all-time favorite horror movies, maybe my all-time favorite,
What's that?
up there with The Omen. I love The
Okay.
Omen. Is White Zombie.
Oh gosh!
Oh
You
my
You
god!
hit it on the nose. You hit it on the nose because it is an homage to White Zombie.
No shit.
Yeah, obviously. I've actually got this on my.
I hope it is.
Check it
I
out.
hope
Look
it
at that.
actually is.
You see that?
What? What's it say?
Right over here. It says homage to White
Homage to
Zombie.
White Zombie.
Yes,
No.
sir. Yes, sir.
Oh my god, that's one of my favorite.
I love White
Oh my
Zombie.
god, I don't remember the actress, but like they do the soft focus on
Sure.
her, and when she's the zombie, she's just
Oh gosh,
so beautiful.
She is
So beautiful.
She is.
And Bella Lugosi.
Hello. I
Hello.
mean, come on. How can you go wrong? Gosh, we're talking about Lugosi, and I'm not trying to drift from Craven or anything. Well, that's another podcast, but who's the most superior vampire? Who's the most superior Dracula? Christopher Lee,
Dracula.
or Bella Lugosi?
Bela Lugosi.
Or is it the Count from Sesame Street?
I want to suck your blood.
3, 4.
One.
Two. Anyway.
Three. All right. Anyway.
4.
Yo, this could
Gosh,
go all
we'll
night.
be here all night. Okay.
Anyway, point being, if you haven't taken a moment to check out some of the old black and white films, especially horror-wise, yeah, okay, Dracula, Frankenstein, blah, blah, blah. But White Zombie, man.
It's an excellent starting point, wouldn't you say?
Man,
Seriously,
it's-
for someone that's
it's so
never
different.
been exposed to that particular genre.
And
that
I was
era.
I was talking with someone on Twitter, and hopefully they're listening to this podcast.
Please.
About I mentioned White Zombie because I think they were talking about what's your favorite zombie movie?
Okay.
And he was like, yeah, wouldn't it be awesome to have a plantation of zombies?
Yeah.
Like a sugar plantation run
Yeah.
by zombies.
Oh, goodness.
Like that's like slave labor that everyone can get behind.
Yeah, and talk about
They're
what-
dead.
right?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, where did I see that? I think it was The Walking Dead. They had something similar, basically a similar treatment. But anyway, go on.
I mean, that's about it. I just God, I love that fucking movie.
Yeah.
I really do. And I'm not one of those people who just loves old cinema, which I do. I do like a lot of older movies, but I don't like them because they're old. You know what I mean?
Okay, repeat that for the listeners. You said you don't like them because they're old.
Because they're old, right?
What does that mean exactly?
Well, I mean, I feel like some people just like the thought that it's like, oh, well, these movies were made in the 40s, and this is like...
So it's an immediate
backward.
turnoff is what you're saying?
Well, no, I'm
or
not saying...
Or it could be for certain people.
What I'm saying is that, like, some people, like, I guess, whenever they want to be elitist about certain things, like, they'll go way far back. Okay. So they'll be like, oh, well, the best movie ever made was obviously Citizen Kane, and then followed quickly by Casablanca. And things like that. Like, they just want to pull old movies. And don't get me wrong, I fucking love Casablanca.
Great film.
But I don't love it because it's an old movie.
Sure.
I love it because the script is fucking solid.
And you know what? You're absolutely right about that. And it's one of those things. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to jump on a bandwagon, okay? Everybody and their mother loves Casablanca. Everybody and their mother likes Citizen Kane. So let me go ahead and jump on that bandwagon and state that. It's almost kind of a bougie, for lack of a better term. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, look at me. I'm a film enthusiast, and I like Casablanca, and I love Citizen Kane. Those are my favorite films of all time. It's like, you know what? I'm sorry, but fuck that. It's like, okay, they're great films. Don't get me wrong. Again, I'm not stating that they're not, but all I'm saying is basically, everybody's got their taste, right?
Right. And for me, once again, beyond old cinema, White Zombie. And speaking of old cinema, one of the first horror films of all time, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Ooh, look at you. Gosh, you're just full of references tonight.
I am. And it's funny because they never can pin it down. Some people say 1919, some people say 1921.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, it's always up for debate,
But the point being, man, that was it was a German expressionist film. So it was very obviously it influenced like Tim Burton and like everybody like that. But funny enough, they remade that movie, and I think I still have it on DVD. But they remade that movie, and they took the old backgrounds from the original film, and the entire movie shot on green screen.
What's this? This is
the remake of Dr. Caligari.
Okay.
Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. So they took the original 1920s film or whatever, and they superimposed it on the green screen, and they had modern actors playing, and it was all in black and white. So it was the same movie, except now it was a talkie. So you can actually like, and of course there's they had to write more of a script because
if I may, and not to cut you off their case, but for listeners at home who may not be familiar with certain terminology, okay, can you explain what a talkie is, please?
I think they know what it's.
I mean,
a movie that
has
talking.
You never know. Listen, real quick,
Before,
I worked at a not to drift, but I worked at a a Home Depot. I was there for a couple of years in the rental department, and I had individuals come in who looked the part, and basically lawyers, doctors, and such that would say, they'd hand me a drill and they'd say, I want to rent this thing. I say, okay. And then their next question is, how do you use it? And I said, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You don't know how to use a drill? Really? That's kind of how I feel about this. It's like there may be individuals out there who may not be familiar with certain things like that. Because,
okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so by the way, it's a random. God, it was a low budget, but if you do get a chance, the remake is fantastic. So I loved it.
Your stamp of approval.
I mean, I haven't seen it in years, but I remember watching it and being very struck by it.
Okay.
And just the monster in that movie, period.
Oh yeah.
I was very enamored by it. I actually went for Halloween one year as the monster.
Is that right?
Absolutely nobody got it. I mean, I wasn't expecting anyone to get it. I mean,
it's like I'm assuming that you put a lot of effort into it, correct?
I mean, it's not really. It's minimalist makeup.
Right, but I'm saying, with respect to your intention.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, but that's one of those like, it's like when people go as like obscure references for Halloween to things. You know,
I had a buddy of mine at it was a work function. This was years ago, Halloween, and he came dressed as a God particle. And people didn't get it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if you tried coming to a Halloween party dressed up as like Seth Green's character from Buffy. I don't think anyone's gonna get
Xander?
that fucking joke. What?
Or Xander?
No,
Remember Xander?
or even Xander.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most people. I mean, if you said you're a Xander, they'd be like, "Oh, I know who that is." But Seth Green's character on Buffy, that's
You know what'd
pretty
be wild
fucking
though
obscure.
is if you did do that, and then you went to said party, and then you had a random individual be like, "Oh, sweet man, Seth Green from Buffy," you know?
Well, everyone does it for that one guy. That's
Sure.
why they wear the obscure outfits, because that one person
Sure.
walks up and like, I get it. And they're like, for a moment, they're like,
Right.
I'm not that crazy.
Yeah.
The world is not that crazy.
Exactly.
But they are that crazy.
They are indeed.
They are that crazy. Anyway, so let's see. So what was the other influences?
Well,
Unless you want to have more about this. I don't want to cut you off on
indeed. Yeah, more about this.
that. Lots more.
Indeed, lots more. One night, one man, one goal. So yes, the Serpent and the Rainbow. We're talking about, I guess his most significant work, at least what I deem significant, and that is the Serpent and the Rainbow, as I mentioned. It has significant impact on my upbringing as a horror enthusiast. Let alone a film enthusiast. And this, along with The Thing, John Carpenter's classic,
Hey-o.
and Pet Sematary. Remember Pet Cemetery?
I never watched it.
Ooh, treat yourself.
I don't like a Stephen King, man.
What?
I don't like Stephen King.
At all? So, did you not like The Shining?
I like The Shining, but that's mainly because Stephen King didn't like The Shining.
Because Kubrick did his, he
His
pretty
own
much
thing.
did what he wanted with it.
Yeah, and then
it worked.
like the Sci-Fi Channel like remade it more accurate to the book, and it was awful. So
I seen that. Yeah.
whatever.
Anywho, so yes, The Serpent and the Rainbow. In my, it's my considered belief basically to say that it stands alone as as pretty much his finest work. Just an attention to detail that you hardly see nowadays, at least with respect to the horror genre.
Right.
The script, you want to talk about screenwriting. Gosh, just solid all throughout. And that's interesting because the performances weren't really, anything special. But the script was just on point. You know what I mean? And being that it was loosely, based on a true story, that's also what seriously it's what drew me to the film.
How true is the story?
It was totally the story. Again, it's interesting because yes, is a first horror film that I've ever seen, but it's more a psychological thriller than anything else.
Okay. Right. No, that makes sense.
In its own right, But yeah, so that's pretty much in a nutshell how I feel about Craven, and that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface.
Well, about that movie, maybe Craven, we haven't even gotten into
No.
So it's so funny that you mentioned thriller, because to me, traditional slashers, I guess, I don't. Maybe Halloween, but anything probably past the 90s slasher movies, I don't consider them horror movies. And I know that I know that I'm going to catch shit for that, and I know that that's an unpopular opinion. But if you look at a movie
but
like,
it's an honest opinion.
But if what I didn't see it, but like Cry Wolf is a horror movie. Even You're Next, amazing movie. I loved You're Next.
I can't say that I've seen it.
I loved it.
It's on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Again,
it's
for
fantastic.
the listeners out there, if you're listening to this, You're Next. Check it out on Netflix.
So it's kind of a slasher, whatever.
So, okay.
But the point is, to me, just because you're putting on a mask, it doesn't make it a horror movie. To me, that makes it a thriller.
Okay.
I think there's something thrilling about people chasing after you, and like a movie like Scream, to me was a thriller. But in the same respect, a movie like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, even though they are considered slasher films, those are horror movies.
Sure.
Because that brings in the element of an other. It's not just people on people, which I understand that like people on people is usually people's greatest fear, that somebody's going to invade their home.
Or inflict some sort of harm.
Right. Whether it be like the puncturing be literal or metaphorical, to sexual trauma, or whatever the issue may be. And I get that horror films are reflections of different types of phobia, whether it be per generation, like body snatchers and stuff like that during invasion times.
Okay.
Or like the 80s, where there were a lot of those kind of movies, the pod people type movies, because of ramping up with Russia during the Cold War.
It spoke to a deeper connotation, basically. What you're saying.
Right. So for me, like, I get that in that way it reflects horror. But I don't know, man. There's just something about slashers that I want to put them in their own genre. And like I said, maybe even just consider them thrillers. 'Cause, I mean, like, it's a cat and mouse game. Like, if you take that and you add a gun and no mask.
By the way, I don't mean to cut you off. Do you hear that?
What?
You don't hear that?
What?
That. Right there. That, my friend, is a solid perspective. If I ever laid eyes on one,
motherfucker.
so
I was gonna say, because Morgan, the person who used to live here, told me that this place is fucking haunted as shit.
is that?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay, well, that just added a little.
I thought you actually heard something.
No,
I don't believe in ghosts, but apparently this place was really fucking. It's a historic building, actually.
Well, you don't believe in ghosts, but you must believe in me to have me part of this podcast. Hey, here, there's a little, zinger there for all you horror freaks and fanatics out there. Anyway.
Yeah, this was, if I'm correct, it had something to do with Prohibition. I think they used to hide gangsters here.
Is that right?
Like Al Capone and shit.
That is interesting.
This is a historic building. Anyway, point being, perspective.
Yes.
Is that you take away the mask, you add a gun, you got cat and mouse.
Okay.
Right? That's a thriller.
Yeah, that's a thriller.
Right?
It's a thriller, and okay, I know you were talking about getting heat for a couple of comments you made earlier, which I think is great, because listen, we have to be honest here. I think the listeners deserve
Honest.
brutal honesty. I'm talking about honesty without a condom, okay?
Yeah.
And that was kind of a risque comment to make, especially given the subject matter, kind of, without a condom. It's like we're talking about that sort of thing.
Right.
Anyway, great. Now I lost my train of thought.
Slasher movies. So take something like that I feel very diametrically opposed, which is Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Sure.
So you take a slasher like Freddy Krueger, who is, first of all, a character, second of all, a supernatural being, and third of all, he kills in supernatural ways, as opposed to Scream, which is an unspeaking character who is 100% based in reality.
Technically,
and he kills with a knife.
but he has conversations with them by phone, right?
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But he's not playing with them when he's, respective movies, but he's not playing with them. It's more of like a frantic chase because he's trying to, like, in the real world, quotes, chase someone down and kill them, as opposed to quietly, slowly stalking them. Which I don't know if they do that in the sequels. I think they might, but whatever. The point is, those are two very vastly different views of the slasher genre that one man produced. Both of those are his babies, but they're so different from each other. And I almost feel like with Scream, he was almost poking fun more at a different type of slasher than Freddy Krueger. And I feel like post-Scream, most people took their slasher cues from things like Scream and Halloween, as opposed to like Jason and Freddy.
Oh yeah,
like
certainly.
Yeah, moving from that point on, everything was based in reality and quotes. They took some of the old cliches like tripping and breaking the leg and shit like that, but they still, I don't know, they still stuck grounded. And when it lost the supernatural element, it lost me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's always what was so much fun about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're good slashers. Don't get me wrong. But to me, I watch a horror movie. My favorite types of horror movies usually are Satan movies or ghost movies or things of that nature. In vampires, werewolves are cool too.
Sure.
But I like things that do not exist in this reality that we know of.
Sure. Something alien that presents a threat, right?
Right. And yes, it plays on certain underlying fears, like a fear of death, what happens after death, is there an afterlife, and hell, like, you know, and that's all the afterlifey stuff, which maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's because I don't necessarily believe in an afterlife that kind of terrifies me, and that maybe that touches me in a certain way.
That possibility.
Or just the incarnation of raw evil that was really only built from the questioning of the establishment, right? Like an entire creature and an entire mythology that's based around somebody questioning authority.
Absolutely.
Right? And that is portrayed as the bad guy, which I don't know if you even consider it a horror movie, but Devil's Advocate is, in my heart, one of the best movies. I love Devil's Advocate.
It's definitely a thriller.
Right.
And I can certainly, I mean, it lends itself well to the horror genre. Absolutely. But solid choice on that, solid perspective on that.
Yeah, because he makes when I watched that movie when I was younger, he made such compelling, Al Pacino's character, the devil, which he's my favorite devil. He made such a compelling argument at the end.
Evidently, you haven't seen the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. Tom Waits was the devil in that one.
So
that was appropriate. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so just something about that. I saw it when I was younger, and I think it just helped to reinforce certain beliefs that I already had.
Okay.
When I was younger, I was brought up in the church, so I was forced to go to church almost all Sundays growing up, and then I kind of started trying to make it so I couldn't. It was an on-off thing. But the point being, there was when I was probably preteens, early teens, my perspective was that either God didn't care or God was a sadist. And that's kind of the argument he makes in Devil's Advocate.
Sure.
That he either doesn't care or he's a shithead. And he likes watching people suffer.
I can see that.
So, I don't know. There's something about, I guess, that genre, the demons, all that stuff. I don't know what it is. And I'm still trying to work that out. Like why that speaks to me.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Why it appeals to you.
More than other things.
Sure.
You know, I don't know. Like once again, I'm not a gore hound. I'm not really into. I want something
with substance.
Yeah, with substance. Something, and I'm always looking for a movie that'll actually scare me. Which,
like for instance, what was the last movie that you could say did that?
God, man, I don't even know.
Oh, A Shot in the Dark.
Know. I don't know. Like the one that left me with the most dis-ease recently was that Nightmare documentary.
Okay.
But that's only because for like.
Did you watch that in theater or was it?
No, I watched it at home.
Oh really?
Yeah.
It's not streaming, is it? Or.
Anyway.
Yeah. So back to the matter at hand here.
Anyway, my point being that only freaked me out because it's a real thing.
Sure.
And I was kind of worried that after watching it, I might have it.
Ooh, okay.
So that kind of scared me.
If you don't mind my asking, did you experience anything after having watched that or no?
Not yet. Thank God.
How long ago was it?
About a month ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, part of me like would find it fascinating just to like see another.
Experience that or what?
Yeah, just to have like an other that I can actually experience and see
or connect with,
which is kind of cool because in that movie a lot of the people that they interview, which are real people that they're actually interviewing, I'd say most of them, even though they're completely aware that it's a psychological disorder and they're completely aware that there's been science on this, they still firmly believe that it is not a natural thing. They firmly believe
sleep
that
paralysis.
Yeah, they firmly believe that these things actually are visiting them.
Oh, wow.
And even
how terrifying is that?
Like, as a cognitive dissonance, like they actually know that they're not real, but at the same time they feel so real because they can feel the touch, A lot of them say they can feel like this feeling of dread. They can hear screams.
It's almost like they feed
can
off
hear
your
the
emotions.
sounds. Yeah, they can hear the sounds of hell. They say they hear screaming in their ears, and like there's a shift in the room, and all the joy is sucked
to
out.
Temperature, or
I don't know, just like in general, like everything is sucked out of the room, and there's these things that come in, and they visit. And sometimes they get so close that they can hurt you.
Wow.
But even then, it's just like unsettling. Like someone said that the one that visited him the most was like this figure, shadow figure, of course, with a hat. And he had like minions. So like he was obviously the leader. And then his minions would come out and he would just kind of sit there and watch.
Wow.
So things like that.
Unsettling doesn't even begin to describe it, let's be honest.
Right. So moving back towards Wes Craven, I feel like there's a couple things that we have to touch base on. First, my unpopular opinion, again, with all these unpopular opinions, which is on a slasher movie, I really liked My Soul to Take.
Okay.
And I
as I mentioned, I have yet to see it, but
it's cool.
It's on Netflix, correct?
I don't know. But I don't think it is. Maybe
check
it
that
is.
out tonight.
I don't know, man. I liked it. It's one of those movies that I went to the theater.
Sure.
I saw the movie. I enjoyed it.
Okay. How about this? Sell us on it, okay? For someone.
I don't remember it well enough to sell it on it.
Premise, concept.
It was in 3D. That was cool when I saw it. But
nice.
no, I don't know what it was. I really did, and it was one of those that like I remember it being like the meta to Scream.
Okay.
So he took it a step further. That it was so meta that it was self-aware of being self-aware.
Oh, I see. Do you feel that compromised the film, or do you feel that it?
I liked it.
To elevate it.
I think a lot of people hated it. I know a lot of people hated it. I didn't pay attention. I went in, I saw it, and then I came out of it and looked into it, and then realized that it was not an acclaimed movie. But
did you know it was a Wes Craven film prior to?
I knew that.
Yeah.
But I went in with fresh eyes from the perspective of I didn't take time to look at what the critics had to say before I saw the movie.
I see.
And then coming out of it, I was like, oh, everyone hated it. I liked it. Fuck it. I liked it.
Matters, yeah.
Whatever. But we can't have this discussion without talking about Freddy Krueger.
Of course not.
I mean, that's like, it's been
sacrilegious.
It's blown up all over Twitter, the million different pictures of Freddy Krueger and Wes Craven and all that connection. Or like that, there's one drawing that's been going around that it's like Wes Craven's tombstone and Freddy like leaving his glove in front of the tombstone and walking away.
Nice touch.
Yeah, like things like that. I mean, he is the character. I mean, beyond Scream, because people are aware of Scream. They see the Scream mask. They know what's going on. But I think the character that he's most associated with is Freddy Krueger.
Sure.
You were gonna say something.
I was gonna say that, you know what? I mean, Craven himself is responsible for introducing some of the most iconic figures in horror history. I mean, dare I say that Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund himself.
Right.
I mean, that interpretation of that character. I mean, how do you feel about the fact of that being deemed the best, I guess, horror figure? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's
just I guess the most impactful. I mean, because you think about a character. Okay, we're talking about characters here.
okay. Character-wise,
I mean, he's probably the one that really made the most noise.
I'd say the most memorable are going to be Freddy Krueger, Jason, Texas Chainsaw.
But you know, this is the thing.
Leatherface, Pinhead.
Sure.
That's descending down the list. Chucky, Pinhead.
Who else?
That's
Throw
down
a couple of other names in there if you can think of anybody
those are
else.
the big ones that pop in my head. But Freddy Krueger and Jason are probably the top two.
Well, I'll tell you, from those two, with respect to character, or from that broad range of characters you just mentioned, I'd say that, you know, Krueger and maybe Chucky have the most personality, but of the two, Krueger probably has the most. I mean, the guy I mean, England just owns the character. England has a ball with them. You know?
Yeah, and
that's derivative of Craven's writing.
Yeah, and it's funny because it was another one of those like low budget. They started New Line Cinema in its entirety from that movie.
Correct.
Which is amazing.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah. And then I took a grad student level course in horror films when I was in college.
That's excellent.
Right, and one of the
what was that like?
We'll get into that. It's amazing, but you'll probably hear a lot about that kind of stuff in the podcast because it was a really informative class. But the
fact that class exists is pretty sweet.
And the teacher was fucking hot.
Was she?
Oh, man. She was older, but she was just plump, pretty.
She spoke to you, huh?
Oh my god! Yeah. And she knew her horror. She was dating a younger guy. She was she was married to a guy that was like 15 years younger. So she knew that she was gorgeous.
Okay.
And he was a good looking guy, and I think he was also a teacher. Okay. Anyway, so the movie that we watched for Nightmare on Elm Street, out of all the ones that they made, was, I believe it's number 2. Yes. The super gay one.
Okay, what's it called? I was just watching it the other night.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's like
there's the school bus and the cliff and then the
naked coaches getting whipped and all of the subtext that like he leaves the girl and leaves her unsafe to go save his friend who's a guy.
How absurd is that? And there's
the pushing through, like the penetration that's involved, like I don't know if I can remember properly the interactions, but there was a lot of implications of like penetration of Freddy Krueger between the two male characters. The fact that the male characters were once again more interested in each other than any girls. The fact that they go into a fucking BDSM bar.
Sure.
And then like the coach gets whipped with towels to death.
That something? Yeah.
It's considered the most homoerotic horror film like ever made.
You know what? I've read that.
And I believe, if I'm correct, the person who penned it, the writer, is gay, and a lot of those references weren't accidental.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could have told you that. Definitely. Absolutely. I mean, you hit it on the nose with that one. And yet, in my professional observation, if you will, I actually deem it one of the finer nightmare movies.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Talk about unpopular opinions.
Indeed. Hey, unpopular opinions. That's like the underlining topic, if you will, of this show. Which, right. If I may, thank you for listening, of course.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in to our show. We really appreciate it. Really quick, just to make a fast plug, like us on the Facebook, The Gory Details Horror Show. Follow us on the Twitter at Gory Details HS. Send us an email, The Gory Details Horror Show at gmail.com. We're also going to be, at the end of the show, we're going to feature music. If you have a band that is interested in putting some music out there, psychobilly, horror punk, even certain metals, anything that's spooky, if you want to us to tack that on, send us an email. We'll get back to you. We'll listen to the tracks. I guarantee you we'll listen to it. If it's right or not, it's one thing. We will listen to the tracks because we want to give you guys exposure to. We want to make this as cohesive,
it's fully functional, multifaceted, you name it.
So we want to make this a full round project. So we're gonna move on to our next topics, but just really quick, I just wanted to once again, let's take, and I know this is cheesy.
What's that?
But let's take a quick moment of silence.
Appropriately
for Wes Craven.
Indeed.
All right. His contributions will last forever.
Absolutely. And
may he cause nightmares from beyond his grave.
And to all infinity.
All right. So we are going to be moving right along. So now we are going to discuss what is my favorite, I think, all-time favorite television show.
What?
I mean, it could
All-time
be.
favorite television show.
It could be.
Or horror show.
I mean, maybe television show.
Really?
It is. Even if it's not my favorite, which I think it is my favorite.
You're just like really crazy about it.
Even if it's not my favorite, I think it is one of the most well-made shows of all time.
Agreed. And Casey, our listeners are wondering, what the hell are you talking about? What
What am I
show are
talking
we talking about? It could be any.
I said
it could
Hannibal,
be any
didn't
show.
I?
Did you?
I don't know.
I don't. I
Well,
mean,
we're talking about Hannibal.
okay. Well, that's
We're
it.
talking about Hannibal because it came to an end, and I am one of those people.
As an end for our listeners out there who have yet to see a single episode, end as in a season or end as in series?
Series is over.
Is that right?
Yep, season 3. The series has ended. It was canceled. It was. So here's one thing. First, there was kind of a back and forth between Amazon and Netflix over taking over the rights.
I heard about this.
Netflix was very interested, but it was a conflict of interest.
Also,
I don't know what
if
the
you- if
conflict
you- if you
was,
recall.
but I guess Amazon had some kind of rights.
to the material, or
Yeah, I think so. So Netflix kind of backed down, and then Amazon decided they didn't want it anymore. And
Really?
I
a little
mean, I'm
surprising.
pretty
I mean,
sure that's
because
how
it's
I'm pretty sure that's how that went.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but they were kind of going back and forth, and then it kind of cooled, and then even Netflix was like, "Yeah, whatever." Okay. So everyone kind of dropped it, sadly. But it was very brilliantly described by a critic as the best show on television that nobody's watching.
And if I may, did you have any more to add to that, by the way, or no?
I mean, we're going to talk about the show more, but
Well, of course, we're gonna, this whole. I mean, I have to. Again, we're talking about segues here, and you've had some pretty solid segues. Mm-hmm. That in itself is a solid segue to what, you may ask,
what?
to why it is considered as such.
Why it's considered one of the best shows on television that nobody's watching.
Aside from the solid writing, which I'm sure that you can agree.
Beautiful writing.
All right.
But to
What
me,
else?
what set this show apart was a couple things. First, the cinematography is the absolute most beautiful. The directing and cinematography. I don't know the
television?
show. Period.
Of drama.
Period.
Have you seen Breaking Bad?
Period.
Period. Wow.
And I'm
That's
talking.
that's a rather tall glass.
I'm talking about an art piece here.
Okay.
I'm not talking about television. Sure. I'm not talking about primetime television. I am talking about of all time.
You're taking some
Dude,
I mean, wow.
It is.
Listen, I'm not gonna argue with you
Okay.
because
But-
I see no, but I see your point because I'm okay with that because I think the show's that good. But to say all time, at least for me, it's a great show. It's probably one of the best in recent memory. Okay.
Right, but I'm not talking about just the show.
Leave It to Beaver is up there.
No,
I almost fell off my chair.
I saw that.
Talking
I saw
about
that.
Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, no,
Anyway.
I'm not just talking about the show being the best. I'm simply right now talking about
As an art
cinematography.
piece. Oh, cinematography.
As an art
Oh,
piece.
okay.
Directing and cinematography.
That's why I asked. Have you
Yeah.
seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah, I have.
Breaking Bad's up there with regards to cinematography, just
Breaking Bad
gorgeous.
doesn't hold a fucking
What?
candle. All right,
Oh,
so
you're killing me
No,
here.
because I'm talking about first of all, the food in that show.
Okay.
Man, it is the most beautiful, elegant
Mind
food.
you, I've only seen one
And-
episode.
Okay, well,
So walk
it's
me through that.
The most
what's
beautiful,
the deal?
elegant food. It goes through him cooking it, and the way that
There's an elegance about it.
there's an elegance about the whole show.
Yeah.
But it is like he basically serves plates that you would pay $500 per plate at a restaurant
He
for.
is who?
Hannibal. Hannibal Lecter.
Dr.
Sorry,
Hannibal.
Hannibal Lecter.
Dr. Lecter.
Yes, Dr. Lecter serves people, and it's usually people he's either manipulating or going to kill, and he serves them other people, of course, but it's just so the preparation looks so pretty, the finished complete plate is beautiful, and that's just one element. But if you look at like some of the death on the show, it's just absolutely
Graceful.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
I think if I remember correctly, there's an episode where someone is murdered and they're basically like kind of grown into a tree, and all of their organs are replaced by flowers.
Spoiler alert, by the way. Should have mentioned that, but whatever.
Whatever.
You know, you'll catch it. You'll like it.
It's not, that doesn't give anything away.
Okay.
Trust me.
Okay.
Like it's just it's a throw off.
Okay.
But it's just the color palette. It's amazing.
Is it? Yes. I mean,
It's shot beautifully. The good choices. The angles are
calculated.
But so that was the first part, is how beautiful it is. The second part is how unapologetically itself it is.
How so?
First of all, it does not lower its brow. The
Okay.
it's almost exhausting.
Sure.
How much it does not lower its brow.
There's a blatant disregard, basically.
Right, which I think was a big. I don't even want to say it was a turnoff, because I think most people didn't even give it a chance.
Sure.
And that's the thing, is everybody I talked to who was a fan of either TV or horror or anything, I would bring the show up and they would always be like, "Oh man, that looks like such a great show." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're the reason it's getting canceled."
Ooh.
Because you're not watching it.
Sure.
And everybody I talked to, it was unanimous. Everybody I talked to said that looks like a great show,
But
I'll get around to it.
Yeah.
And I would tell them it's the best show on television. They would just be like, "Whatever. I mean, I'll get around to it. I'm watching Breaking Bad."
Yeah.
Whatever it is, like, and now it's too late.
Okay.
Now they didn't get around to it, and it got fucking canceled. And
How about this?
that broke my heart. I'm not done on the apologetic though.
Okay, please.
Okay.
Go on.
But the second part is, first of all, we're going to get into American Horror Story. But I'm bringing that up because I feel like that was one of the most, I guess it pushed the limits the most for television.
American Horror Story.
When that came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first season really pushed the limits.
Sure.
There were butts. There were people getting cut in half.
Gosh,
It really pushed the limits. But Hannibal was on network television.
Correct.
And there was especially this one episode where this guy creates like a werewolf type suit.
Oh, wow.
And I remember, I think it was that episode.
You got me sold on that alone.
I think it was that episode that I believe it was Hannibal ends up cutting a man's face off and feeding it to him.
Okay.
And it does not cut away. Like, you are watching on network TV, not even cable.
Okay.
This man getting his face slowly
you wouldn't
sliced
even
off.
really see that on cable. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find that on cable.
It was directly our
He's that
movie
graphic.
material. It was some of the most brutal thing. It was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen
Okay. Oh, wow.
on a television show. Even in movies, it's pretty brutal.
Sure.
Compared, I mean, like, yeah, there are a lot of gore films. You can get a lot worse.
But
Don't get me wrong,
in
it's
recent
not
memory-
a Serbian film, but
as of late, that's what you
but
would say.
I was watching it and I'm like, this is fucking brutal. And then it popped in my head. I'm like, this isn't even cable. This isn't FX.
Sure.
This is like just normal primetime TV.
Yeah.
And once again, it was very unapologetic for what it was. It would not sacrifice. It was highbrow. It wanted to be highbrow. It wanted to be beautiful. And it wanted to be brutal. It wanted to be smart and sexy. It wanted to be everything that you want in a woman until she murders you.
Wow.
And it was.
Yeah.
It was the woman sitting in the corner at the bar that nobody was paying attention to, who happened to be the most beautiful girl at the bar.
Sure.
So, I don't know, imagine like an old starlet, like an old
Like from the golden age of cinema, like your
no, I mean not even cinema, but like think about like a jazz singer, like with one of those circular microphones,
like a Billie Holiday or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like the flowing hair, the bright lipstick, the sparkly dress. Imagine that crooner like sitting in the corner in the dark where you just can't see her, and she's there, and she's got a beautiful voice, and she's a beautiful woman, and she is something from something else entirely, and just nobody paid attention to her, you know, and that's what that show was to me. So
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, you touched base on a couple of really solid points, and I'll tell you what. For only having seen one episode, You've convinced me to check out the entire series.
Well, thank you.
So
maybe other people will too.
let's hope so.
Maybe Netflix will pick it up then.
Maybe Netflix will send us a royalty check or something.
God, right?
Is that even... No, that doesn't make sense.
I don't know.
Anyway,
so
back to the matter at hand. You know, Casey was talking about how great this show is. I mean, the guy's got a hat on for it. You know what I mean?
oh my God, right? I had a moment there.
You did? I mean,
I
seriously.
thought I was gonna cry. I had a moment there.
I saw your ducks produce or want to produce tears. I mean, seriously. I honestly felt that you were going to break down right now. I was prepared to console you.
Oh,
I really was. Seriously.
That's so sweet.
Come here. I will hold you in my arms.
What is that?
And I had no clue what that is.
Supposed to be an
It's
Asian
late,
lady?
and I'm just...
That sounded
it's
really
whatever
racist.
came out. No, I mean, that wasn't my intention. Whatever, you know. It was funny. People...
And anyway.
I'm sure they're finding it amusing.
Anyway.
Anywho, so back to the matter at hand. We're talking about Hannibal and why it's such a great show. I'm going to tell you exactly why. And this is
Go ahead,
coming from
Eric.
someone who's only seen one episode.
Shoot.
All right. The man's name, or the reason I should say, is due to a gentleman by the name of Mads Mikkelsen. Yes, Mikkelsen. He's a Danish acting god. All right, and just in general, and not just that, but in this, I mean, and like I said, okay, I've only seen one episode. That's all. I mean, all you need is a little taste, and you're hooked.
Ha! A taste. Get it?
Because
He's a cannibal.
Okay, well,
Ah.
yeah, you know,
He's a good cook.
all right. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and pat myself on the back tonight.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, this interpretation of Hannibal, and we haven't even touched the surface on just the treatment of the material.
And we have to.
Okay, and we will.
Oh my God, we will.
We
yes.
certainly will, because I'll tell you something. I mean, okay, talk about solid rendition. On the topic of reboots, you know, remakes, whatever you want to call them, this is a valid reboot and remake. And I'm going to say something that's going to blow your lid.
Oh, blow my lid.
Ready?
Blow
It's
it,
gonna
baby.
blow your lid.
Blow it, baby.
It's going to blow your damn lid.
Blow my lid, baby.
Bottom line is this, okay? This is a testament to how great Mikkelsen is in this role as Dr. Lecter, who was also famously played by Sir Anthony Hopkins, okay? And, of course, Academy Award-winning Anthony Hopkins. Okay, there you are. There you are.
See my hand?
I sure do. Oh, man. I wish that people could see what you're doing, because, I mean, this is... I'm loving it, you know? I think in a matter of, like 2 hours, you've gushed, you've glowed. I mean, you've almost broken down. I've seen a couple of aspects of your personality. It's just, hey, man, we've been, you know... Anyway.
Yeah.
So, aside from our bromance here, yes, back to Mads Mikkelsen, all right? This is the individual that's playing the celebrated thespian, if you will, who's been afforded the privilege of playing Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who, of course, was made famous by, as we mentioned, the one, the only, Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Uh-huh.
Excellent cue on that.
By the way, another thing they're going to hate me for.
What's that?
He did way better than Anthony Hopkins.
God, I was getting there. Damn you.
Go ahead. Go. Well, you're
But
taking forever.
I know. It's just that I'm so stoked, you know?
Okay,
Like, I'm just
okay.
like, I feel like I got to set it up. It's worthy of like a elongated setup.
Okay.
But yes, no. And you know, that comment doesn't take away the lesser, because it's the truth. The bottom line is this, and I'm going to compliment what you just said. Bottom line is, okay, if Mikkelsen was around when The Silence of the Lambs was made, okay, and he was the individual to play Lecter back then, it would be his Oscar. Bottom line. All right. That might be a tall glass, but I'll tell you what, that's the bottom line.
I don't think, and this is not to take away from Silence of the Lambs, because
No.
that was a good movie.
Oh, as a
but
classic.
I think that the show outclassed that movie so much.
Oh, big time.
That
Night and day.
I don't even think, even with him at the helm in
Sure.
that role and
Yeah.
that in Silence of the Lambs, I don't think it would have done Hannibal Lecter justice.
Oh gosh, no.
Just the script alone.
You're
wouldn't
right.
have
It's
done
apples and oranges, and the thing is, his interpretation, Mikkelsen's interpretation, it's different. You know, it's a different interpretation. It's basically, in a nutshell, it's a quieter, deadlier version of Lecter.
Yeah.
Okay. As where Hopkins was more, hellish. He had kind of a hellish glee about him.
Right. And Hannibal Lecter in this one, like, he has a level of humanity to him.
Yes, exactly.
And it's so endearing that the characters are being stabbed and tortured, and they still come back for more. They still love him,
Because
knowing
he's
that
charming. The guy's charming. He's hilarious. Okay.
Yeah.
He's hilarious and chilling. Rolled up into one
And intelligent.
burrito.
And he's
the
just-
guy. He's calculated. I mean, you want to talk about the epitome of a serial killer? That's it. The guy,
Right.
and that's again, and this speaks to how just on point Mickelson is in his interpretation. The guy, I mean, he's such a treat. And like I said, having seen that one episode, that's enough for me to be sold. And obviously giving you a recommendation. But yeah, back to Mickelson. The guy is just a phenomenal actor, and a legend in his own right in his native Denmark. And actually, you'll find some humor in this.
Okay.
He's referred to as a velociraptor in human form. Yes,
I'm not
as
surprised.
his approach to the character, his approach to acting. I mean,
What does that mean?
basically that means that I think it speaks to his intensity. Okay,
Whoa, that was weird. That really picked up on the microphone. Sorry.
listeners are going like, "What is going on?"
So, this is not at all the takeaway from Hugh Dancy, who played Will Graham,
Yep.
which is wow.
Yes.
And if I'm
glad you
correct,
touched
and if
base
I'm
on
correct,
that.
Will Graham, if I'm correct, was played by Edward Norton.
Yep.
In Red Dragon. That
Correct.
was Will Graham,
Correct.
right?
Yes, it was.
Yes,
and I believe
because
that.
Hannibal is a prequel to Red Dragon,
Correct.
Or at least not the book necessarily, because I haven't read the book, but the movie Red Dragon.
Sure.
Hannibal takes place directly before,
Okay.
so it's leading up to Red Dragon. Which once again, Will Graham in this series like kicked the shit out of Edward Norton in Red Dragon. And I love Edward Norton.
Oh,
I
gosh,
love the
huge
guy.
fan.
I have a Fight Club poster on my
See
wall.
that.
We're looking
I
at
see
it.
that. Norton's great. I mean, he was phenomenal in Birdman. Did you see that?
No.
While on the topic of all things meta, you have to watch Birdman. Do yourself a treat.
That wasn't.
Do yourself
Edward
a
Norton.
treat.
That wasn't Edward Norton.
Did you like that? That was Edward Norton. He was in Birdman. He was opposite of Michael Keaton.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. He
Oh,
was
yeah. You're
fantastic
right.
in that.
You're right. You're right.
He was
Yes,
nominated
I have
for
seen
that.
the movie.
I mean, gosh.
I just think
I
of
know,
Emma
you had a
Stone.
brain
I'm sorry.
fart.
That's all I can think
you had a
of.
brain fart.
I love her so much.
What did I say? I said something
She's
a
so
little bit.
gorgeous.
What's that? Who's that?
Emma Stone.
Yeah, she's cute. Oh my god. She's got a nice personality and
Easy
she's a
A was a
great
good
actress.
movie.
Huh?
Easy A was a good movie.
I love that
So was
movie.
Crazy
The
Stupid
wife loved that
Love.
movie.
I love Ryan Gosling.
Well, I'll tell you why Easy A was great was because it was a
We're gonna
blatant.
catch shit. This is a horror podcast.
know, look at us.
We're talking about
Who
Ryan
cares?
Gosling.
It's our show. Check it out.
Okay.
Easy A was a blatant homage to all things John Hughes,
Yeah.
and also 16 Candles. I don't know if you gathered that.
Okay.
The ending.
Okay.
Okay. Revisit it again, and
I will.
and
I
you'll
will.
see.
But going back to horror, I'm
Sure.
sorry.
No. I'm sorry. You brought up Emma Stone. You brought
I
up
did.
Easy A,
I did.
and then I'm
I
like,
love
you know
her.
what?
I love her. But
Okay.
anyway,
But she was fantastic
but-
in Birdman, by the way. Amazing.
yes. And if you haven't seen the show yet, Will Graham in this show is an empath who is brought in to get in the mind of serial killers to help catch them. But every time he gets in the mind of a serial killer, it basically takes a little strip of his soul away every single time. And he's being visited by this giant black elk, which is another beaual part of the show.
Oh,
Is
I
this giant
love
black
that,
elk.
yeah.
And when he's fly fishing
So
in the
symbolic,
water
what
with
you're
the
saying?
girl who's supposed to be dead, and all that stuff, like all of his imagination is like, this is my design. Like his imagination is part of what gives it that cinematography. And I don't want to say that Eddie Izzard is not a phenomenal actor and does great in his role. He's mainly known for comedy, obviously. He's
Sure.
a stand-up comedian.
Right.
Professional transvestite, I think, is what he calls himself.
Is that what they're calling him?
No, that's what he calls himself.
Oh, that's what he calls himself.
Right.
Okay.
But he brought something to that show that
different
another
dimension.
actor wouldn't have brought.
That's a good point.
And I respect him for that. It was weird to see him in that role.
But if you had to put someone else in that role, who would it be?
I wouldn't.
If you had to. If you absolutely had to. A matter of life and death.
I would have to think that through.
Okay.
Because there's no one that just pops in my head for that.
Sure.
But he did phenomenal. Everyone in that show did phenomenal. Just acting was superb. What's his name? Who was in The Matrix?
Oh, Hugo Weaving, was it?
I think. I don't know his name. But also a great job on that show.
Okay.
Oh, man. I now know him probably more from that show than I do from The Matrix anymore.
Isn't that wonderful?
I love that. I love it because
wonderful.
I wanted him to get away from The Matrix. I wanted him to have something else.
Well, I feel the same way, or felt rather, the same way about Keanu.
Well, Keanu had other things. Bill and Ted, man.
Bill and Ted. See, Keanu. Oh God, look at us. We're getting. Now you got me on my soapbox talking about good old Keanu. You know what I mean? I mean, come on.
And his latest movie was amazing.
Oh gosh, John Wick. High five.
We can't reach you.
Mental high five. How about that? Yes, John Wick was just excellent. The wife loved it, and I loved it. I mean, it was just sweet.
Good movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, so if I had to pick between the movies once again and the show, man, I'm going with the show every time.
Okay. You know what? I am fairly certain that once I get to that point, and once I've pretty much seen the show or the series rather in its entirety, I'll come to the same conclusion.
You know what?
Trust me, and I know that this is not to demean the Silence of the Lambs by any means, but it's just it's an observation. It's an observation, just with respect to quality, and also a difference in era because. Who knows? Maybe if the Silence of the Lambs if it was released today, it'd probably be a little more akin to Hannibal.
Maybe I could see that. I could definitely see that. It was definitely for its time. Really funny, quick anecdote about that. So, Buffalo Bill, the whole tucking. Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. I'd fuck me hard.
Oh, what a
oh my God,
yeah.
College. Jesus Christ. The people I partied with, we had a lot of underwear parties and stuff.
A lot of references?
No, God, man. There would always be that one asshole at the party who would start playing that song.
Okay. Sure.
And then there would be 3 or 4 guys dropping their pants and sticking their dick between their legs.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah, there's a lot of male genitalia at those parties.
Wow. That's, wow.
That's a real thing. That's a real story. You can ask my friends from college.
Huh?
Yeah, that was and they're probably going to be listening to this. So
listen, if you're listening to this and you're in high school, well, I certainly hope that, your parents are around. Or whatever. You know what? Enjoy the show.
But I'm not going to name names.
Yeah.
But my buddy Vance, who was at his house. So if he's listening to this podcast, I'm going to tell him to listen to it because I said his name at least once.
Well, exactly. You just did. You name dropped.
And his little dungeon. But anyway, man, I fucking lost my train of thought on that.
We're talking about college, and basically, how we're encouraging the youngins to go to college. For male
we're
genitalia.
Not doing that at all.
Oh no.
But, no, we're not encouraging kids to go to college. I don't know. They can do whatever they want with their lives.
Okay.
But it's
there's something about college and male genitalia and how their comparisons and anyway. So go ahead.
It was something about the show and the movies.
Like the comparison.
I don't know. Yeah, it was something about the comparison.
Yeah. But basically, I think the last point that you touched upon was the fact that the show is more superior than the film.
Far
more superior.
My train of thought is completely unrelated. My train of thought came in. This is also to say I'm one of those people that when I fall in love with a show, it's pulling teeth to finish it.
What do you mean?
Penny Dreadful season 1.
Okay.
I still haven't watched the last 2 episodes of the season because when I was watching it, season 2 hadn't come out yet.
I see.
So I refused to watch the last 2 episodes because there was no more after that, and I love the show so much that I didn't want it to end. And I am probably 6 episodes behind on Hannibal because I refuse to fucking watch it. And I want to watch it really bad, but there's just something so heart-wrenching about that show coming to an end that I just can't face the music.
Oh, wow.
You know, so I'm trying to force these episodes down my throat, not because they're bad, but
because you have a hard time letting go.
Yeah, I don't want it to end. Although I do like the idea of it ending before it jumped any kind of shark.
Okay, which is great.
Which is good.
You know, if you're gonna go out while on
Top. That made a weird noise.
Yes,
too.
it did.
Okay.
All right, so we're back here with Casey, and
We didn't go anywhere.
Well, technically we did for just a second, but then again,
They didn't know that.
They didn't, but they do now. So now I have to finish it. Now I have to explain the whole process, and I gotta go tell them about everything. And hey, this is what you do, and so and so.
Just so you know, this is all ad-libbed,
Yeah.
and it is basically one take. We have to stop every
actually,
10
you know,
minutes or
that's
so
interesting.
just to save.
It is one take.
So it is one take.
You know?
We don't talk in between it, but
Consummate professionals.
so what he's referring to basically, yeah. So we stopped it, saved it.
a
But the thing
transition.
is, like, I'm using Pro Tools. I love Pro Tools, but I don't trust my
Alright.
computer, so I have to save every once in a while. Because if we do 2 hours of a podcast and it dies, I'm gonna fucking throw my computer at the wall.
Sure, and it might hit me. So
Duck.
yeah, duck.
Don't worry, if it misses you, it'll go to the closet, and then the monster in the closet will swallow it.
Okay, perfect. Hey, you know what? Problem solved.
Yeah, I don't
So-
trust that closet.
You know what? And I'm sitting right next to it, so that's. I mean, you know.
The house
What
is
else,
haunted, man. Maybe that's what it is.
Man, I'm just here having a good time. Two random dudes talking about horror flicks. I mean, you know. Okay, so I had to do a double take on that. I said, "Okay, boy."
Okay, so
So we're talking about American Horror Story, the latest, I guess, installment, right, of the series is Hotel, which is just great. I'll tell you, I'm excited about it. There's a lot
it's
of
just great. We haven't seen it, but it's great.
well, no, the concept.
The concept.
I
I love the concept.
Okay, that's.
I haven't loved the concept as much since the first one, the haunted house.
Really? How did you feel about Coven?
You know what? I loved Coven for one main reason.
Let's hear it.
I have the hugest celebrity crush on Thaisa Farmiga. Like,
Okay, yeah,
she is
she's
beautiful.
Well, her mom, I'm drawing a blank here, but her mother, just a wonderful actress.
Yeah?
She was Up in the Air opposite George Clooney, which was a great film in its own right.
Well, yeah, I
Jason
celebrity crush like a motherfucker.
Okay.
Like when I first saw her in the haunted house, the first season.
Sure.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I was just blown
You fell in
away.
love, huh?
I'm just like, she has that unique kind of girl next door. Definitely not supermodel, but just so
But she's
cute.
Yeah, she's beautiful. Her eyes, you know, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Acting really, in my observation, is all in the eyes. You know.
And I like the concept of Coven. I love the witches idea.
Oh, definitely.
Um,
How about this? One of the better renditions of that concept in recent memory. I'm saying witches. So basically, that show.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
okay,
So
I
the
get
way
what
you
you're
felt
saying.
about. Okay, gosh, what we were just talking about.
Hannibal?
Not necessarily. We were discussing something earlier. Some genre piece. I think. Near Dark.
Near Dark.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
We're
my
talking
movie.
about Near Dark being probably what you consider to be the most superior, right?
It's the pinnacle.
Okay, the pinnacle of the vampire genre. This is coming from the man, the myth, the legend, Casey Pletcher, ladies and gentlemen. I can respect that. I have my own views, obviously, but we won't get into that right now.
Right. So you were saying though about Coven.
So Coven, the way you felt about Near Dark for the vampire genre is the way that I feel about Coven for the witch genre. You know?
Yeah. No, I get you there. I'm trying to. I'm probably gonna have to take like 2 seconds
Please,
just to
little
research.
facts check.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Basically, like I mentioned earlier, you know, Ryan Murphy, the creator of American Horror Story, and also
Glee.
Glee, you know, another show that the wife absolutely loves. And I'll tell you, I've actually sat through it. I sat through it, and it was it's wonderfully done. Okay, the guy's got an eye for
Glee?
quality. Yeah.
No, yeah, until like the
Yeah.
last couple seasons were sucked ass, but
Yeah, you know, they could have
beginning
ended
was
it.
pretty
Maybe
cool.
perhaps the same
once
fate.
was his dude died, it kind
Perhaps
of
Hannibal's fate should have been exacted via Glee. Anyway, so yeah, Ryan Murphy. This is a mastermind. This is a man who's really just pushed the envelope, so to speak. Because, and especially with the horror genre. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
You know,
the guy's been on top. Does he have someone in his family who's autistic? Or
I'm not
has
entirely
Down
sure.
or
I'm not
something?
entirely sure, but I know it's kind of a I want to say not a theme because it's not really a theme, but it's something that he gravitates towards.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so I found what I was looking for.
Sure.
So, God, I can't even pronounce her name. Gory Sidibe.
Okay. Precious.
I think so. Queen
Gabourey.
Regina Ross is the
Okay.
character she plays.
Yes. Gabourey.
Yeah. So
What are your thoughts?
I feel like I don't know, like
She was out of place,
in
or what do you
Coven also, but I don't really like her as an actress.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just don't like her. I don't.
Did you watch Precious?
No.
Huh?
No.
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 I mean, she wasn't like great in it.
My point. I don't know.
But
this is something about her whole the whole subline, not subline, sub story. What's it called?
like a
Subplot.
Okay.
The whole subplot involving the voodoo. I feel like I know what they were going for, and I feel like it could have been good, but
Like they were trying too hard, is what you're saying? Or
I
not?
don't know if they were trying too hard. Maybe I just didn't give enough of a shit.
Okay.
I don't know what that was about.
Well,
like
okay.
I feel like it could have been. They could have had more fun with it. I don't know, and I just didn't like her character in the show.
Sure.
I feel like, man, I hope she doesn't hear this podcast because I feel terrible. But
it'll get better in a second, and I'll tell you why. But go ahead.
okay, I don't know. I just feel like her on the show, at least for that season, kind of drug it under.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a rather tall glass to swallow there. I obviously feel differently. I think that she was one of the anchors of the show. Certainly, yes.
That's for wait.
I'm sorry? Oh, wow. Now she's really going to hate us if she
Yeah,
listens to
she's
this. So
gonna
good
hate
one,
us.
Case.
Hey, we have to be unabashed, right?
Right? I guess so.
okay.
You know, brutal honesty. But listen, she's lovely. I really did like her and enjoy her in this. And she has fun with it. Okay?
Yeah,
If
I can see
if all
that.
else fails, she's having fun with the
I can
role.
see
You got to give it to her.
I just don't. Maybe it was the character. Maybe
Perhaps,
it's not her as an
yeah.
actress.
I guess I could see that. Now, to me at least, I mean, okay, come on, you got talent like Kathy Bates. I mean, that alone, she's just
I love her, but another one that I just
okay.
I don't know.
She's underrated, in my opinion.
I know she's a great actress. Don't get
She's
me
an
wrong.
amazing actress.
But and then also like Freak Show. I
See,
was
I
not into the bearded lady. I'm sorry, I just wasn't
weren't?
sold. That show, all right, Freak Show was all the fuck over the place.
Yeah.
It was all over the spectrum.
I have yet to see that.
They had too many fucking, and pun intended. They had too many balls in the air.
Okay.
You know, juggling.
Ooh. Okay.
But it was another one that could have been really cool. The concept of a carnival of horrors
Sure.
is not new, but
It's a universal fear, basically, the fear of clowns.
right. And just the carnival in general, just like I don't know, but I feel like they didn't do it. It was
Justice.
It almost felt too grounded, but then at other times it got ethereal.
Okay.
So most of the show seemed very grounded in reality, but then they would throw in supernatural elements kind of at whim.
So it lost you, basically.
There wasn't cohesive. There was way too much shit going on. And then there was the are you going to watch this season? Because I don't want to give it away.
What's
for
that
you.
now? Freak Show?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely planning to watch it.
Okay.
So
Well, I don't
just,
want to ruin it
you know,
for you. But there's near the end of the show, there's a very controversial scene that really got a lot of attention when the episode premiered.
Positive or negative?
More negative, I think, just
Really?
because maybe the climate.
Okay.
But even that just felt like it was forced, and it was just it basically was like a Deus Ex Machina. It was just like, hey, we're gonna wipe the slate clean,
And that's it.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And once again, it got a lot of exposure, just because it was shocking.
Sure.
You know, for like it had its shock value. Especially just like I said, wiping the slate clean the way they did it. You're just like, huh. But it wasn't in a way that I think particularly served the story. I think it was just shock. It was just
Shock
complete
value?
shock value.
Really? See, okay, that's the problem that I have with Murphy's work.
Too much shock value.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, I get it. It is a horror genre, but just like we discussed before, ease up with the shock value.
He was behind Nip Tuck too, right?
What's that?
He was behind Nip Tuck, wasn't he?
Actually, you know what? He certainly was. Wow.
That show jumped 8 sharks. It jumped sharks. It like turned a shark into a boat and then drove it over a shark ramp and jumped 3 sharks that were eating sharks.
Gosh, I mean, you couldn't be more on point, man. Honestly, listen, it's a show that started off brilliantly.
I can't watch X-Men ever again.
What do you mean?
Because Jean Grey from X-Men plays a transsexual on that.
Dude, she was phenomenal in that.
I know, but it just makes me look at the actress differently.
Really?
Not that there's anything wrong with being trans. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But it just like now every time I see her, I see like kind of like a dual gender thing going on.
Really?
Even though she's not actually in real life.
Think about it this way.
So once again, like
she sold her performance well, evidently, because it's had that type of an impact on you.
Right. And I don't know, man. That's like one of those things that, once again, absolutely nothing wrong with trans or the trans community or anything like that.
Absolutely.
But it is, I think we should be able to admit that, like, twisting our brains into that perspective of someone who we previously have established as one gender, playing that gender as someone who's previously another gender is a bit of a mindfuck.
Well, not only that, but think about it. Okay, that was a mouthful. And I'm still trying to grasp my head around that because, okay, now think about that, but think about being an actor and having to portray something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of that. I mean, that's not.
I'm not saying she's a bad actress.
No,
she's
of course
good.
not, but
it's not her fault. The show.
But yeah, but I'm just saying it's
awful.
interesting that it had that type of an impact on you.
Yeah, it's kind of
so now you associate that with her every time you think about it, or every time you see her on screen. That's the first thing that comes to mind, correct?
Yeah, I'm trying to whitewash that.
Okay,
I'm trying to get that out of my head.
All right,
not because I don't know. I don't know. But yeah. So we haven't even gotten into this season.
What's that? Well, actually, but before we get into that season, into this new season here. So, Coven, a couple of reasons why it really resonated with me is thus far the finest season of the American horror
story
shoot series is okay. You got this show. It's about witches.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And they're eating sandwiches. It's about witches eating sandwiches.
And
witches eating sandwiches. What else do witches do? I don't
witches,
know.
they eat. They eat sandwiches. They.
I don't get this joke. I'm actually not following
witches, here. Sandwiches.
Oh.
Yeah.
Would they be eating sand then?
Well, no.
Because they're witches.
Anyway, I should have. But anyway, so the show.
That went fucking nowhere.
That went nowhere quick. I mean, it bombed quicker than. I mean, I don't know. Give me an example.
Hiroshima.
Okay. Ooh. Too soon.
First thing I can think of.
Too soon. That's horrible.
The first thing I could think of when you said bombed.
Okay. Really? Oh, hey. I mean,
sorry about
whatever
it.
Works.
Sorry,
whatever
Japan.
works.
It's not my fault.
Oh, I know, right? I mean,
I didn't do it.
No, and you weren't even born yet.
No.
So,
God, my grandfather probably was like maybe around then.
Wow.
Maybe. No, I don't even know if he was. No, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a kid though. He's a child.
Yeah, he didn't do it.
Yeah. So you're good. So you're good.
Anyway, yeah. No white guilt there.
Exactly. Did you say white guilt?
Yeah.
Okay, you just said that. I'm looking at a machete with Puerto Rico on it. What's the deal?
I'm half white.
You're half white. What do you consider? What do you consider more? You consider yourself more Puerto Rican or?
God, I don't
white?
even want to get into this.
And we won't.
Okay.
You know what I just did? You know what I just did right now?
What?
I just drove our listeners crazy.
They
want to know more about this.
Yeah. Well, maybe in another episode, because we got to move this train along.
And move along, we will.
Okay.
Speaking of moving along, guess what? Aside from Kathy Bates, Angela Bassett, how do you like her?
What's she been in?
Huh?
What's she been in?
What's Love got to do with it? Oscar nominated? Come on.
I don't remember. I'm bad with names.
She was Boys in the Hood?
Nope.
She was the mom?
Don't remember.
Dre's mom?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Have you seen Boys in the Hood?
When I was a kid, maybe.
Oh, you got to revisit it.
Okay.
John Singleton, come on.
So
okay, you got Kathy Bates. You got
Hold
Angela
on.
Bassett, Jessica Lange. I mean,
I
Stevie
wanna-
Nicks.
I want to drop.
Okay.
All right. Now you fucked me up here.
I did.
Because I have 2 Fleetwood Mac albums on vinyl over there next to your fuck.
Tell me that one of them is the one-
Rumors.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it is.
on vinyl.
Yeah,
Oh,
on
what a
vinyl.
classic album.
It is.
I love
it is.
Fleetwood Mac.
I actually busted it out about a month ago when my mom came up to visit.
That's awesome.
I busted
Is
out.
she a fan as well?
Yeah, of course she got me into it. So I took that out. Supertramp, Phil Collins.
Supertramp. Look at you, Phil Collins.
all that on vinyl. Yeah, I have
Dude, you're like
Breakfast
a
in
retro
America.
whore.
Yeah. Anyway, point being, Stevie Nicks' voice was awful in that show. It's gone to shit. She has a raspy voice. It did not age well. When she played piano, that could have been a moment, and it wasn't.
Well, you see, this is the thing. Gosh, I have mixed feelings about that because I love her.
I love her.
But you're right.
But
It's,
her
it's
voice
a
is
little
ripped.
hard to watch. It is a little hard to watch. But I'll tell you something. I mean, okay, for who she is now and how her voice is diminished, I guess, or the quality of her voice is diminished. You know, I mean, you know, it was what it was, and it was okay, I suppose.
Right.
But of course, it makes you really miss, you know, older Stevie Nicks, you know,
Right.
like original. I'm talking about, you know, Rumors Stevie Nicks, or even solo Stevie Nicks.
But I like how she was wrapped into the storyline.
You know what? And that's pretty much what really allowed me to identify with Coven, was because you know, and if you think about it, a lot of her material, Stevie Nicks, and of course Fleetwood Mac, you know, Murphy was really keen on using that and also weaving it into the story.
True.
Which was really nice. I thought that was a nice touch. So
Yeah. So, but speaking of American Horror Story
Yes.
and Drop Dead Gorgeous Dames, Emma Roberts. Emma Roberts.
Hello.
Blondie McBeautiful.
Okay.
Blondie
Blondie McBeautiful. That's actually what they called me in high school. Don't ask me why.
You're not blonde.
Oh well, that's what you think.
Okay. Anyway, so we were talking about earlier. I forgot to mention it with the Wes Craven bit, but so she is going to be on this upcoming show called Scream Queens, which they I think just recently dropped the intro.
On what channel?
Fuck, I don't know. FX maybe? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But maybe Fox. I don't know.
Possibly.
But they just dropped the intro to the show, which first of all, music is great. Second of all,
What type of music?
I don't remember, but it was good.
Well, evidently it was that great.
It was good. Really cool fucking intro. But if you pay horror fans, if you pay close attention, there are certain references throughout. And one of the references is the most obvious. There's a girl in a bathtub, and the slasher character, who is a devil character, pops his head out of the water between her legs. And there's
reference
Wes
to what?
Craven again.
There you go.
There's fucking
Craven
Wes
just
Craven
popping up
again.
everywhere you go. You
All
know?
over the
Yeah,
place.
Seriously.
Out of his grave.
Hey, and he's going to continue
that
to
too
do
soon?
so. Huh?
Is that too soon?
No, it's Wes Craven. It's appropriate. You know, and
Okay,
he would
thank
actually
you.
love that. If,
Okay.
You know, I'm certain of it.
I'm certain
That-
of it.
I'm certain of it.
And
you
your
know.
experience with him.
In my experience with the man, I mean, we, you know,
Yeah.
I was gonna say we grew up together, but no, that'd be
You're
there's
a
a major,
little bit of an age difference
a
there.
bit, a touch, a smidgen.
If you grew up with him, it'd be maybe a little weird if you have no connection to him.
Correct.
It'd be like a
So,
Michael Jackson thing.
I suppose so. Gosh,
Michael
thank you for making that.
Yeah, someone made a joke the other day.
What's
like,
that?
I think it was a comedian. He was talking about like, yeah, can you imagine if like it might have been Joe Rogan.
Okay.
I don't know. But can you imagine if like Michael Jackson was poor, and like we're talking about
Can I
like.
imagine if he was poor?
And I mean, no, if he was like living out of his van and then trying to get
Jackson.
kids to stay over,
Oh gosh.
you know,
that okay.
something about him being rich made it okay.
I want to go ahead and send a shout out to my man Casey for fucking up my nightmares tonight. You know, thank you, Casey. I will now have nightmares about Michael Jackson in a van by the lake,
Fly fishing for children.
fly fishing. All right, thank you for that. Wow.
Get a lollipop on a string.
Yeah. You thought about this, evidently. Okay. Wow. My goodness.
There are hand movements going on.
soon?
We really need a camera for this.
I mean, I'm saying,
This
we got
podcast
we got
needs to get-
flailing arms, we got hand gestures. You know.
Flailing
We got a little bit of everything. Okay.
So what's next on your little
On
list?
my little notepad.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
guy.
that we pretty much hit everything. I mean,
hit all the
actually,
notes,
I'll
huh?
tell you something. American Horror Story. All right, a wonderful companion piece would be what, in my opinion, Hannibal. Wouldn't you say? Let's say the best American Horror Story episode paired up against Hannibal's best, or even Hannibal's worst for that matter. Because even Hannibal's worst.
I was gonna say, what? There's no comparison there.
Well, I'm not saying, but I'm saying it's a nice contrast, basically.
Yeah, it's a different show entirely, though.
Exactly.
It's completely.
But within the same realm, though, the same realm of horror.
Yeah, but I mean, it's.
But see, that's what's.
This feels. Sorry, it just got loud for some reason.
Did it?
Oh, whatever.
But I know what you mean. I mean, they're different shows. But again, if I'm having, let's say, for instance, okay, back in the day, creature feature Saturdays, creature feature evenings for me were. I mean, it was every day. Mm-hmm. People at home are probably wondering, what is a creature feature? A creature feature is basically, your old school, your King Kongs, your Godzillas, your Mothra, the creature from the Black Lagoon coming to a theater near you.
No, it's not. They haven't remade that one, apparently.
Actually, no, but they're working on it, and I'll tell you something. What? Yes, and that's going to be a topic for another podcast. I'm having a hard time
they're doing
with
all
that.
the classic horror monsters.
Yeah, they're doing them, and they're actually redoing Wolfman.
Yeah, because they're doing all of them. Because they're going to tie them together with that Dracula fucking movie.
Don't even tell me. But yes, companion piece.
But yeah, so let's really briefly discuss just a couple quick thoughts on Hotel itself.
Okay.
Because we watched the trailers.
Yes.
The man in the bed.
Yep. That's
the peephole.
Murphy's got an eye, man. He's got an eye. I mean, he knows what'll really fuck with people. You know what I'm saying? And that you don't really see too often.
I think he's been missing more than he's been hitting on that.
But you got to admit, when he hits them, though, it's out of the ballpark.
Yeah, when he hits them, he hits them. Sure. I really hope that this season's a return to season one, which I heard an observation that was interesting, that every other season has a tone. So I guess like season one compared to season two. What was season two again?
Season two, let's see.
So Haunted House.
Was that season one?
What? Season one was Haunted House.
Season two was, I'm drawing a blank here. I guess because, Coven had that much of an impact on me.
Coven was 3, right?
Coven was 3.
So two was...
show was 4.
2 was Asylum.
Right. Which was excellent.
Right. So apparently, the theory goes that like 1 and 3...
Asylum was great.
1 and 3 have the same kind of tone. 2 and 4 have the same kind of tone.
I see. Okay, that's interesting.
Which would mean that the tone should return to the same tone as Coven and the season 1.
Sure.
Which are the best seasons by far, I think.
What's that now?
1 and 3.
That's a solid observation.
And I think 2 and 4. 2 was a huge misfire. I think a lot of people didn't like 2.
Agreed. Actually, and not to cut you off, but to touch base on the whole creature feature aspect of it. I mean, part of what made Coven so great, and we'll get to Freak Show, or not Freak Show, Hotel shortly.
Right.
But part of what made it so great was Minotaur. I mean,
yeah, man, that reminded me of I'm reading Neil Gaiman's American Gods right now.
Yes.
You've read it?
No, but I've but I'm familiar with it basically.
They're talking about this like creature, buffalo headed, I think.
Sure.
Creature. But even though
that was a little unsettling though, wouldn't it? That the use of that creature and the
yeah. I mean, that was good. Yeah. But yeah, so if the tone continues in this fashion that's been described, then we should have a throwback. Oh, man, Asylum was such a waste. That's such a good concept that they just shit on.
They could have done a better job with it, and then just the acting talent on board. I mean, Murphy's got a good eye for casting. He knows who to place in what role to really allow him the opportunity to flourish.
Yeah, although he's tied the universe together, which is cool.
What's that now?
He's tied the universe together.
You mean
it all takes place in the same universe?
Is that right?
Yeah, because he's had recurring characters like the
sure.
Like one of the nuns from season 2 was in season 4, I think.
Oh, really? Freak Show?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she was playing the same character.
Oh, wow.
So it actually transcends.
That's kind of cool.
There are different elements that transcend. Yeah. So it is the same universe, which makes sense, actually. But Hotel, I'm not aware of what era it's supposed to take place in.
I have a feeling that it's probably maybe 50s or 60s. I could be wrong.
I was going to say the era is going to really make or break the show,
Okay, so
the season.
Let's talk a little more about that.
I feel like if they choose the right era, if they choose an era that hotels were still kind of regal and still kind of creepy,
Sure.
then they can really work with that. 50s would be perfect.
50s?
50s would be a good time.
What do you think wouldn't work?
80s.
Okay.
You want a bunch of like weird colors and shitty carpet and I don't know. That's when they installed all those shitty carpets that they had to
The
replace.
Shining came out in the 80s,
Yeah.
and that's like the epitome of all like hotel horror films. You know what I mean?
I get it. But I don't know. I feel like the tone of American Horror Story would lend well to late 40s, early 50s.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
I could see that happening. Or like a very upscale 20s.
I was just actually thinking that. I think that would.
I don't know
work
if they've done that. Have they done? Because I think Freak Show was like 30s, wasn't it?
well. I have yet to see it, but you tell me. I mean, you would
And
know
then,
more about that.
and they keep going back and forth with that. Actually, that's another thought. Season 1 and season 3 were modern. Season 2 and season 4 were different eras.
Quite keen on that, yeah.
So season 5, if continued, would be modern
Oh, to follow the same.
pattern.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean they're going to. But if you think about it, the Haunted House and Coven both took place in modern times, right? Or at least relatively
Most of
modern.
it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean there were throwbacks, but I'm talking about like the mainstay storyline.
Yeah, you could say that.
2 and 4 took place years ago, so I'm assuming they're gonna bring it back. I don't know, maybe
just
to
seems like-
incorporate Lady Gaga.
What's that?
Maybe to incorporate Lady Gaga into the show.
Perhaps. How do you feel about that?
I've never seen her act,
Okay.
so
Well, do you like her as an artist or no?
I'm not keen.
No.
Not particularly. I get it. I don't.
My concern is I feel like they're gonna try to like over glorify her and the fact that she's on the show.
Yeah.
Give her more camera time than she deserves.
They pulled back with Adam Levine.
Okay, Adam
They didn't
Levine,
even
let me
give
tell you,
him that much advertising space.
which is fine, but I actually I thought he was just right, for the role that it was a subtle role.
Yeah,
but it was a good one.
I like
So-
Adam Levine.
Yeah, I do
What
too.
I'm
I think
saying
he's
is,
great.
when they advertised for that season, they didn't really push the Adam Levine thing.
No, they didn't. You would think that they
the first
would.
the first ad they dropped, if I remember correctly, for this season was the Lady Gaga ad.
That's true, and
said,
maybe they're
like,
trying to appeal to a
Hotel
different
Gaga.
demographic. Who knows?
Fucking come on!
You know?
I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
this-
I'm with you. It's kind of like
this is what drives me nuts about not necessarily her but her fans.
sure.
Is that so she's taking, first of all, she takes obvious references from different pop artists throughout the years, but beyond that, the whole monsters and the whole being a freak and being different, she's basically just scouring the subcultures and just picking little things from like goth and metal, kind of like that kind of aesthetic,
Okay.
and then she's turning around and turning it into pop music, and everyone's like, I can be different now, it's okay to be different because Lady Gaga. And it's like there's already been tons of artists who did the different thing. They just weren't in the pop genre, but this doesn't make her revolutionary just because she dresses differently and just because she refers to people as monsters and she's this out there character. I mean, that shit's existed for fucking years,
Yeah,
man.
I mean, you got cats like David Bowie, you got cats like Alice Cooper, who
Yeah,
introduced
yeah,
that
fucking-
concept long
and like,
before.
or just like the goth movement in general.
Wouldn't you say that? Or would you consider Gaga an advocator of that movement? Because it's a movement.
I'm not. Wait, which one? The one she's involved in, or the
Yeah, because
previous
I'm saying the
ones?
movement of that shock. It's sort of the shock factor because she's again with the shock value. You
Yeah.
got someone who's on there, and that's
She's a whitewashed Marilyn Manson.
okay. That's a good
Right?
way to look. I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. But see, the thing is, I don't think that she tries as hard as well. Okay, no, forget that. Yeah,
Yes,
does.
she tries
Sure
harder.
does. Yeah, I can see that. I can totally.
Actually,
see that.
there's very close similar. They're both very like theatric,
Sure.
huge over the top theatrics.
Yeah. But see, the thing is, okay. Say what you will about Gaga's lack of acting
I
experience.
have no idea. Yeah.
I've never seen her act myself.
I've seen her in music videos, but she's usually just like half naked.
Sure.
So I don't know.
But I mean, technically speaking, musically speaking, she's excellent. She's got range.
She's all right.
She can sing.
I'm not saying she's a bad singer. She's not
Sure.
the best singer.
No, she's
you put her
certainly
up
not the
against
best.
like Christina Aguilera, she's gonna get her ass kicked.
I think that she'll. I beg to differ.
I don't know, dude. Christina Aguilera is a good singer.
No, Christina Aguilera is phenomenal. But what I'm trying to tell you here is that Lady Gaga's got, I think her range is up there. I don't know if you've listened to her work with Tony Bennett.
It's pretty sad.
You think so? I enjoyed it.
Not my thing.
So not to drift from our topic at hand here, but yeah, Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett, ideal pair.
I'm not
Casey
into
doesn't think so. But,
I'm not into it.
To each their own, of course.
I don't know.
But back at the matter at hand.
Yeah, so Hotel, there's a lot of things they can draw from. If it is modern, I feel like it does miss a lot of the charm that you could go for, unless it's some kind of like a restored, beautiful hotel with a lot of its old elegance. And they might be able to do throwbacks as well. So they might have like the ghosts of a different era, the ghosts of the 20s. Or
That'd be
whatever.
interesting.
So yeah, that'd be kind of, it'd be neat in like a Disney's haunted house ride kind of way, where you see like the dancing, like that kind of thing mixed with The Shining, where like there's the bar, that kind of thing, like where maybe there's a ballroom and there's people dancing and they're not actually alive. Things like that.
Well, it seems appropriate for Murphy to pay his respects to Kubrick's Shining. Especially given the content.
There are a lot of opportunities with the season to first play homage, and second, really play on a lot of not necessarily cliches, but a lot of staples in the hotel horror kind of thing.
Sure.
Because that is an established thing. And there are a lot of hotels that are purportedly haunted. A lot of
That's
hotels.
what I hear.
So there's a lot of...
I was in La Quinta Inn the other day, and I was grabbing a bucket of ice.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got. That's all that happened.
That's
it.
It's a great story. Thanks for that.
Nope.
This is probably more haunted than that.
I'm sure of it. No, what I was saying, the ice itself.
Yeah, it's probably cold. You got to shiver.
It was pretty cold. It was so cold that I felt like a ghost.
Got to shiver.
Anyway.
Okay, so Hotel might have opportunity. We don't want to beat this one too much because it hasn't come out yet. We will update you once the show premieres. And I thought you were going to say something.
No.
So once the show premieres, we'll go over it briefly. But as far as that goes, we're gonna just kind of keep our ears to the ground, and I guess maybe bring it up every once in a while if anything particularly interesting comes out. But so, just as a recap, we have gone over It Follows. We have gone over Wes Craven and his collective work, which is absolutely phenomenal, and drew a lot of connections there.
Indeed.
We have gone over the Hannibal finale, and we've gone over American Horror Stories upcoming season, Hotel. So, for the next podcast, after some very actually quick discussion, I thought this was going to be more of a debate. For some quick discussion, through some quick discussion, we have decided that next week will be The Thing. The original.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah. So we definitely want you to tune in. We are going to have more horror-related news upcoming in that episode. We're going to try to pump these out at very minimum once every other week. If you see one a week, then cool, you got an extra episode. But our schedule, we're going to try to at least do once every other week.
And once again, we want to go ahead and thank the listeners out there for taking the time to listen, and also taking the time to allow us into their homes and into their psyches for a couple of hours.
Yeah, definitely. If you've made it this far,
and you know what? Seriously, you
commend
deserve.
you.
I'll tell you what. If you made it this far, email us. Okay, let us know, and we'll find some way to. I mean, we'll give you a certificate to. I don't know. Case what? The Sizzler, is that even still around?
I don't know. I'll tell you what. if you guys stick around,
Here we go.
and if you guys can help us build this fucking podcast, and you want to send us over an email, and you want to tell us what you liked about it,
What you didn't like about it.
please not. No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
What you liked.
Speaking of didn't like.
Yeah. What?
We spoke about It Follows. You mentioned during the first installment of our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I think the film itself deserves a segment discussing what we didn't like. But that was a thought that I had that I should have discussed with you prior to. But anyway, here it is. I'm discussing with you now, so deal with it. But yeah, so that's that. So who knows? Maybe the listeners might be treated to that. Who knows?
We might come back to it.
We may.
But so shoot us over an email, shoot us over a Facebook, comment, add us on Facebook, tweet us. But specifically, if you send us over an email, you tell us you like the show, and you just do us a little solid, like repost to your friends, tell your friends about it, get it around, spread the word, and come back to us and tell us, what you did, what you thought, what your friends thought, all that jazz. And once again, we don't have anything yet. We're a brand new podcast, but we will keep an eye on the people who have been following, and we'll find a way to reward you. I mean, who knows? Later down the line, we might have merch, we might have whatever. We'll find a way to say thank you.
Absolutely.
If you help us, we more than anything, we want to be able to help you. We're doing this for you. Right now,
we're doing it for the children.
Yeah, no, we're not. We have.
It felt appropriate to say.
Yeah, we have no sponsors right now.
None.
So we are literally eating it on this. All the money we're spending on any advertising, on hosting, all that stuff is coming straight out of pocket. So we want you to enjoy this show. This is for you guys right now. It's 100%. Who knows? It might take off. We might be able to pick up sponsorships, all that. But right now, we are just doing this 100% out of love because we love this, and we're going to keep doing it out of love, whether it makes any money or not. The point is, we're doing this for you guys. We're doing this because we love doing it, and we want to make sure that we can give you the best experience possible. So let us know what you think. Keep up with us on social media. Communicate with us. Start a conversation. I don't care if you guys argue. I don't care if you post stupid memes. I'll probably steal half your memes.
More than likely.
Because I've been doing that a lot.
You're like
lately.
a meme whore.
I've been stealing a lot of memes. Because it's fun.
Love memes.
So we're coming up to the end of our show. Just so you know, we're going to be ending our shows with a song, as I mentioned earlier.
And Casey, if I may, who do we have the pleasure of listening to?
Well, this upcoming song at the end of this podcast will be by Casey Edwin, which is actually my project.
There you go.
Off of the album Melancholia. It's going to be Soft Wind on Black Sails, featuring Cristobal Mendoza on guitar.
Very nice. A shout out to our dear friend.
To our dear friend.
And talented.
Yes, extremely talented guitarist. If you want to check out this album, it's on iTunes, Amazon, Xbox Music, pretty much anything you can think of, it's going to be on there, which is really cool. Spotify, it's on all kinds of stuff. So you're going to hear that at the end. Once again, though, if you have some awesome music, you want to get it out there, we want to help. Once again, we don't have any money right now. We're pretty broke.
Let us know, but
we can put that music on the podcast for you. Yeah, we want to help you guys out. We want some cool music to listen to.
Sure.
The Gory Details Horror Show at gmail.com. Shoot us a message. Shoot us over some links.
Don't be shy. Don't
be shy.
In fact, we want you to be honest. We want you to be, forthcoming. Please. We wouldn't expect anything less, and of course, we wouldn't want anything less. So
there you go,
Casey.
So, Eric, I want to thank you.
Gosh, you know what? No, you need to stop right there, Bucko, because I want to thank you.
Oh,
yes. Do I feel a high five coming?
Oh, air high five.
Excellent.
Well, thank you guys all for listening in. This is the Gory Details Horror Show. One. No, anyway.
I'm like, he went there? He actually went there? He did.
All right. All right, taking it away with the tunes.
Here we go.
Goodbye.
Give it up.